Chapter 2196. Han Fei didn't know these three people, mainly because he hadn't made it to the top 100 yet. However, even if he didn't know them, Han Fei could feel the difference in their power and aura. That was a real opportunity. Others might not know it, but how could Han Fei not know it? Han Fei was a little surprised. This opportunity was probably comparable to the one he had when he entered the peak level of the Sea Expansion Realm. When Han Fei first entered the peak level of the Sea Expansion Realm, he didn't understand the Tao or the Sky Expansion Realm. But his bloodline didn't allow him to keep a low profile. He was not yet at the peak level of the Sea Expansion Realm, but he already dared to fight with the Sky Expansion Realm. When he reached the peak level of the Sea Expansion Realm, he could actually fight the Sky Expansion Realm alone. And these three people in front of him, even if they weren't as strong as he was, were probably not far behind. Han Fei thought for a moment. There couldn't be many people like them. Even though the ocean realm was much more advanced than the chaotic ocean, the opportunities he had back then might not be any less than these people. Besides, he had the demon purification pot, so these three people's opportunities were comparable to his own. They were definitely lucky. The woman in the lead was wearing a long dress with a slit in the middle. She was hugging her smooth thighs. But how could the 10,000 Scale Clan have smooth thighs? Han Fei took a closer look and found that the scales on this woman's body were so delicate that they were almost undetectable, like smooth skin. Thud! When the three of them were dozens of meters away from Han Fei, the guy in the giant armor pressed the Vajra pillar on the ground, and the air rippled at Han Fei. It seemed to be reminding Han Fei not to stare blindly. Why are you staring at her thighs? Han Fei's expression did not change at all. His eyes slowly moved away from the woman's thighs. He was not at all embarrassed that he had been exposed. After the woman stood still, she put one hand on her waist and slightly stretched one leg, as if she were showing off her thighs. She said, "Are you Yi Fenglu?" Her voice was pure and emotionless. Or rather, these three people didn't have any feelings. They felt they were the same as the Yi Fenglu that Han Fei was pretending to be. Han Fei said indifferently, "It's me." The woman slightly raised her right hand that was hanging casually and hooked two fingers. "Hit me." Han Fei was puzzled. What kind of thing is this? Swish! A crossblade was reflected directly in front of Han Fei. It was so fast that many people didn't even see who attacked. Han Fei was the only one who saw it clearly. The expert from the Blade Clan had attacked in an instant just now. He was so fast that he didn't even leave a shadow when he raised his blade. Han Fei didn't want to be outdone. "You came fast, but so did I." He reached out with his right hand, grabbed a saber from the void, and counterattacked. It looked like Han Fei stretched out his right hand and tore the crossblade. Ding! When the saber lights collided, an invisible barrier bloomed in the surroundings, trapping the four people inside. Han Fei sensed the power of the expert from the Blade Clan. He thought to himself, this is definitely not an ordinary top 100 king. This casual attack can't be ranked low. Han Fei guessed that if these people were not among the top 10 of the internal camp, he would immediately change his opinion about the Sea Realm. Even now, he was still suspicious. Could it be that the Sea Realm was really full of monsters? How could a single force have so many experts of this level? Since they could be so strong now, it meant that all three of them had the strength to fight against a heaven-opening state expert. In fact, a weak heaven-opening stage cultivator might not even be a match for any one of the three of them. He was thinking that if he was too strong now, it might be a bit exaggerated to be able to fight against the three of them. However, it shouldn't be a problem for him to resist. After all, he had already reached the 238th place and eaten a 10th grade tribulation pill. With his potential stimulated, it shouldn't be a problem for him to show his combat ability that could barely make it into the top 100. Han Fei tore the cross blade with one hand, and the man from the Blade Clan dashed forward with the saber in his hand as fast as a mystic light. And when Han Fei tore the crossblade, He drew out a long saber with his left hand. With the saber in his hand, billions of saber lights appeared and collided with each other in the barrier. In the blink of an eye, Han Fei and the man from the Blade clan had exchanged over 1,000 moves. After 1,000 moves, blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Countless kings in the internal camp of the law enforcement camp were dumbfounded. What? He survived the Ghost Blade saber? It had only been 3 months. Could it be that he had obtained some kind of great opportunity? How could he resist the Ghost Blade's attack? No, the Ghost Blade didn't seem to be using his full strength. It was more like a test. Otherwise, Yi Fenglu wouldn't have been able to resist it with his current ranking. Someone wondered, but even if it's just a test, Yi Fenglu seems to be stronger than before. Could it be that the law enforcer secretly gave him some opportunities? I heard that Yi Fenglu broke through the Death God Mountain in the outer camp, and the law enforcer rewarded him with a world origin fruit. Someone guessed. I guess Yi Fenglu must have had some opportunities, but even if he was given another world origin fruit, his growth shouldn't be so fast, right? What if there are 2? Everyone. These people still underestimated Han Fei. It should be noted that in the outer camp, Han Fei only took 10 years to reach the 3,000th place in the arena, and he also broke through the Death Mountain. After entering the inner camp, he fought all the way to the 238th place. Who would believe such strength advancement? It was impossible that Han Fei didn't make any progress in the 3 years in the internal camp. It was just that ordinary heavenly talents couldn't understand it. The Ghost Blade from the Blade clan retreated, and the armored man from the 10,000 Scale clan, next to the woman, attacked. The man directly attacked Han Fei with the King Kong Iron Pillar. He didn't use any fancy moves. He just wanted to see how much energy Han Fei had. Han Fei also found something wrong. The man from the Blade clan didn't use his full strength. He was just testing his strength. Although he didn't know who these people were, Han Fei thought it might be related to what he was going to do next. So, he didn't ask stupid questions like, "Who are you?" Since they wanted to fight, he might as well fight. Why did he need a reason to fight? Thud. Han Fei attacked. A golden fist mark burst out and pressed against the other end of the King Kong Iron Pillar, as if he wanted to compete with this man in strength. However, the horrifying ripples swept in all directions. The scales on Han Fei's body instantly glowed red, as if a primeval force had burst out. Even so, Han Fei pretended to retreat 100 meters, and cracks appeared under his feet. Before, the lords all saw Han Fei fighting all the way and nobody was a match for him. But after seeing it today, he felt that his anger had been vented. In their eyes, Han Fei's combat ability, strength, and speed were all outclassed. Only a few people didn't feel the thrill of Han Fei's defeat, because they knew that Han Fei's strength must have reached an unimaginable level to be able to block the attacks of those 2. Seeing that Han Fei wouldn't admit defeat, red light glowed from his body, and a stream of primeval force appeared. Bam! The seawater exploded like a compressed nuclear explosion. Han Fei had already dashed forward crazily. The phantom of a dragon merged with his arm, and the crazy force shook the entire spiritual barrier. Rumble, the armored man held the rod with both hands and slammed it horizontally. Crack, crack, crack. The terrifying force caused the entire spiritual barrier to be full of crack. Bm. In the surging waves, a figure bumped into the spiritual barrier. It was none other than Han Fei. Someone said, "As I expected, Han Fei's strength is much weaker than Tian Hong's." Someone said speechlessly, "Aren't you talking nonsense? If his current strength is comparable to Tian Hong's, why does he still want to enter the top 10? Han Fei stepped on the spiritual barrier, intending to attack again. Okay. With a soft shout, the battle seemed to be over. When the waves in the spiritual barrier subsided, everyone saw that there was also a scratch under Tian Hong's feet, which was a kilometer long. At this time, they didn't know how to measure Han Fei's strength. Han Fei pointed at the 3 of them and said indifferently, "What do you mean?" The woman in the lead said, "Wait outside the city in 7 days. We'll take you on a mission for 3 years. You'd better do it in advance." After that, the three of them turned around and left without even saying who they were. Han Fei frowned. It seemed that the opportunity had come. However, these so-called opportunities should be the opportunities of the Pioneer Sea realm after all. Unless it involved the origin of the world, it was meaningless to him. He even wondered if he should take the opportunity to kill these people. These people were indeed true heaven's prides. With their abilities, it was already not bad for them to be this strong. After these people left, a voice rang leisurely beside Han Fei. Han Fei turned his head. Wasn't that Guomeng who had fought with him before? Guomeng said, "That woman, by Ran, the strongest in the internal camp, has only fought a few times. The one from the Blade clan is called Ghost Blade, ranked 7th and the main attacker in the first team. The Iron Man, ranked 8th, is called Tian Hong, the strongest body-tempering cultivator in the internal camp. They belong to the first squad of the internal camp. They have always been mysterious. They must have taken a fancy to you because of your potential." Han Fei nodded slightly, thought for a moment, and walked straight out of the outer camp. Chapter 2197. No matter what Bai Ran and these people did, he would find out sooner or later anyway, so Han Fei didn't take it seriously. After leaving the law enforcement camp, Han Fei went to the scavenger city for a big purchase. Han Fei was now a rich man. He had fought 1,000 games in the arena, and his wealth had reached an astonishing figure. If he was outside the city, someone might have some evil thoughts. In a place like the chaotic wasteland, the most important institution was the Resource Exchange Office. It was equivalent to the logistics division of the Scattered Stars Island in the past. The Resource Exchange Office almost included the sum of all the local resources of the chaotic wasteland, which were obtained by countless people exploring and excavating outside. Many of them were even obtained from some primitive cemeteries and recovery land. And in history there were also cases where the starting ground was excavated and developed. The development of a starting ground could excavate a massive amount of resources. It was a pity that no new starting ground had appeared for nearly 2,000 years. The resources that had been excavated from the starting ground had long been consumed. At this moment, Han Fei was sitting in a private room of the Resource Exchange Office. In front of him was a row of jade slips, and opposite him, there was a person recording. Han Fei said, "Ultra-quality spiritual stone resources, 100 billion. 180,000 kinds of minerals and soils of different degrees recorded in this jade slip, one for each side. Give me a set of all the ominous demon plants recorded here. Heaven-opening state tendons, I want 10. You can calculate the total price of the rare treasures and wastes in this jade slip, I want all of them." Behind the clerk, there was a sea-opening state service staff. Who didn't know Yi Fenglio's name now? Everyone jokingly called Han Fei the King of Broadswords, because countless people had been waiting for Han Fei to draw his broadswords. The clerk thought that Han Fei was buying resources so crazily because he wanted to get at least 50,000 kilometers of resources at once. This 50,000 kilometers referred to the 50,000 kilometers after the 100,000 kilometers of the origin sea. In the eyes of others, Han Fei was now only at the peak stage of the sea-opening state, and they thought that this was the resources Han Fei prepared for breaking through to the sky-opening state. In fact, they didn't know that these resources, for Han Fei, were at most enough to open up resources that were less than 10,000 kilometers. Han Fei's real origin sea was almost 200,000 kilometers. He had obtained a total of 1.2 billion energy crystals in the arena. Han Fei calculated the resource exchange according to his own wealth. He estimated that it was enough, so he bought it. His main goal was to enrich his origin sea. After a while, the registrar said, "Lord Saber Monarch, the results are out, a total of 1.16 billion energy crystals. I'll give you a discount. I can give you 1.15 billion. Han Fei nodded slightly. That's it. After Han Fei stuffed a massive amount of resources into the Sea of Origin, the registrar said, "Oh my, this guy is too extravagant. He bought so many resources at once. Even the Lord rarely buys so many resources at once." The Sea Expansion waiter said, "What do you know? These people were just preparing in advance. Some people found it difficult to split open the sky, while others didn't. Take the lords ranked after 50 for example. Their purchases wouldn't be large, but look at the lords ranked before 50. Who didn't spend a few $100 million. Do you think that Yi Fenglu will be weak once he splits open the sky with all these resources? But I heard that he has only been a king for more than 300 years. Why is he thinking about splitting open the sky? Your 300 years is different from his 300 years. He can buy a cultivation tower for 10 years, at a cost of more than 300,000 energy crystals a year. Are you willing to spend more than 300,000 energy crystals to cultivate in a cultivation tower?" The man shook his head. "My cultivation is slow. Even with the best cultivation tower, I'm afraid I can only improve my strength by 10% or 20% a year. But in the future, I'll be poor." "That's right. That's why they say that you can do whatever you want with money." After spending the money and buying some resources, Han Fei was about to buy some cultivation technique. As soon as he appeared, he saw a woman walking towards him. It was none other than Emochi. Theoretically, Yi Fenglu shouldn't know Emochi, so he didn't greet her. But Emochi shouted, "You come here?" Han Fei paused, his face indifferent. He seemed to be asking something. Emochi said, "You and I are destined to meet. Come here, I'll tell your fortune." Han Fei pretended to look at Emochi as if she were an idiot, but the latter waved her hand and Han Fei disappeared. As soon as Emochi took Han Fei away, Chen Yen knew about it. This person was not someone he could afford to offend, so Chen Yen reported it to Zhao Hongwang immediately. Zhao Hongwang said, "It's okay." Emochi was very curious. Yi Fenglu was in the limelight. It was not strange for her to be curious. As long as Emochi doesn't leave the scavenger city, it will be fine. Whether it was Zhao Hongwang or the Emperor of 10,000 Scales, they all gave in to Emochi. They knew Emochi's identity. They could keep her alive, but they didn't dare to kill her. The Temple of Time was a taboo existence. The disciples of the Temple of Time were not afraid of being killed wherever they went. Otherwise, if they traced back time and found out that you killed a disciple of the Temple of Time, not to mention an emperor, the entire scavenger city would disappear from this world. Seeing Emochi, Han Fei didn't hide it anymore. He said, "Why did you kidnap me on the street? Aren't you afraid that others will find out?" Emochi sat down on the table and snorted. "What am I afraid of? Zhao Hongwang wouldn't dare to kill me. By the way, are you your real body or an incarnation? I find that you are too cold. You have been in the city for so many years, but you have never come to me." Han Fei shrugged. "Look at my current strength. Is it my real body?" Emochi was puzzled for a long time. "Not really. However, as an incarnation, how can your strength improve so fast? In just a dozen years, you have become one of the top 300 in the law enforcement camp. Why, what are you up to?" Han Fei said, "I am just using the scavenger city to grow. I have no plans for the scavenger city for the time being." Emochi narrowed her eyes and said, "No. From what I can see, you must have a motive. The Divine Capital Dynasty's grand competition of 10,000 years is coming. You are working so hard to climb up now for that, right?" Han Fei didn't hide it, so he nodded. "That is indeed one of my purposes, but I will still come back." Emochi said carelessly, "I'm not afraid that you will run away. I'm just wondering if your real body will go too." Han Fei asked, "Does it matter?" Emochi asked, "Your real body hasn't turned into a star yet, right? This time it is the grand competition of opening the heavens. If you, an emperor who hasn't turned into a star, go, aren't you afraid of being killed?" At that time, who will help me get out? Han Fei asked. Is it so dangerous? Emochi said. Anyway, I'm just giving you a suggestion. If it's just a normal competition, it's okay if you don't turn into a star. But if you can really make it to the end, I'm not joking with you. Countless strong masters from the entire East Ocean Divine Land, even from other divine lands, will go there. At that time, all the major forces will watch the battle. You, an emperor who hasn't turned into a star, won't be tricked by others. Han Fei's heart did a flip. He didn't know much about this matter. He was just going to watch the grand competition of 10,000 years. He couldn't defeat the Emperor of 10,000 Scales for the time being, so he could only get involved in these things. After all, he couldn't do nothing, could he? And the grand competition of 10,000 years was the greatest opportunity that Han Fei could think of. Han Fei nodded. I see. What else do you want? Emochi couldn't help but say angrily, Can't I ask you for help? Humph, since you are going to participate in the grand competition of 10,000 years, why don't you do something for me? Han Fei narrowed his eyes slightly. What is it? Emochi said, Oh, don't look like that. I promise I won't trick you. Anyway, I'm not going to participate in that competition. Just help me keep an appointment. Anyway, you know the Tao of Time. Just say that you are my disciple. Just say that you are my brother, Han Fei. Until he came out of Emochi's place, Han Fei didn't know if he was a little hasty in agreeing to keep an appointment with Emochi. However, Emochi shouldn't have any bad intentions towards him. After all, the two of them were just temporary allies. They didn't know each other before, so she had no reason to harm him. In addition to this matter, Emochi also gave him some intelligence. One was about some experts in the law enforcement camp, and the other was about the land of recovery in the chaotic wasteland. It was also at this time that Han Fei learned that Bai Ranran once killed a heaven-opening realm expert alone. It was very rare for a king to kill an enemy across realms. Even the weakest heaven-opening realm expert was far more powerful than ordinary kings. As far as he knew, it seemed that he was the only one who could kill an emperor. Even Wang Yijian couldn't do it. However, he finally met one today. Bai Ranran? The first squad? Interesting. Chapter 2198. 7 days later. Han Fei walked out of the cultivation tower and went straight to the gate of the scavenger city. When Han Fei arrived, there were already 6 people here. Unfortunately, Bai Ranran and the other 2 were not among them. Han Fei didn't know these people, but they knew Han Fei. Someone greeted Han Fei, Yi Fenglu, over here. Han Fei glanced around. They were all from the 10,000 Scale clan. Including Bai Ranran and the other 2, among the 10 people, only he and Ghostblade were not from the 10,000 Scale clan. The others were all from the 10,000 Scale clan. It could be seen that the 10,000 Scale clan generally didn't like outsiders to join their team. The image that Han Fei created was one of extreme indifference, so he just stood there and ignored the few people. These people seemed to reject Han Fei too. One of them even seemed to be a bit hostile. Of course, Han Fei didn't care. Because they were unfamiliar with each other, they didn't even introduce each other. At the gate, Bai Ranran and the other 2 walked over like 3 big bosses. Bai Ranran was twisting her butt, Ghostblade was silent, and seemed ready to fight at any time, and Tian Hong was like an iron lump. Not even a hair could fit into his armor. Of course, Han Fei was also a show-off. He didn't keep his saber in his body, but hung it on his body. Later, he felt that it might be a bit low class to just hang it on his body, so he imitated Wang Yijian and let the saber float on his back. That would make him look like a big boss. However, no one criticized Han Fei's behavior. A saber cultivator might have his own way of cultivating a saber. Bai Ranran arrived and her cold voice sounded, "Do you all know each other?" Someone looked at Han Fei and couldn't help but smile. "He may not know us." Bai Ranran said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. This time, you mainly carry out the mission alone. Only those who survive will be qualified to join the first squad. However, not everyone can join. Do you understand? Han Fei thought, it turns out that I'm not a member of the first squad. It turns out that these 6 idiots are not members of the first squad either. So, there are only 3 people in the first squad? Bai Ranran said, now follow me to the graveyard battlefield. Han Fei didn't expect that he would eventually go to the graveyard battlefield. If nothing went wrong, Nez's clone should also appear in the graveyard battlefield. As for whether or not they would meet, it was hard to say. In any case, it wouldn't be a problem even if they encountered each other. Nez's clone shouldn't be much weaker than Bai Ranran. After all, he was a cheat. Half a month later. Graveyard battlefield. When Han Fei came here, he found that it was a vast graveyard. There were tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even more primitive tombs buried here. At present, according to the map of the graveyard they obtained, there were as many as 100,000 primitive graveyards marked on the map. Bai Ranran said, the map in your hands is because you have reached a certain level of strength, and you are qualified to obtain it. Even if you don't make it into the first squad, you can keep this map for yourselves. If you are interested, you can explore these primitive graveyards. Someone couldn't help but say, Boss Bai, everyone knows about this primitive graveyard. Can we still explore it? Bai Ranran said without the slightest emotion, the primitive graveyard is very large. If you look hard, you can always find something useful. Bai Ranran raised her hand, and behind her, Tian Hong stretched out his big iron hand and dropped 7 jade slips, indicating that Han Fei and the others could each take one. Han Fei grabbed one casually and scanned it with his perception, only to find that it was a huge sea map with a territory of hundreds of millions of kilometers. Bai Ranran said, the 9th primitive graveyard has been revived. The entire 9th revival land has been completely covered by the devouring worms. Those who hold this token are not afraid of the devouring power of the devouring worms. You have it, so do the people of the primitive city, and the city of wanderers. For this mission, each of you will be responsible for a sea area to search for the world origin fruit, and at the same time, you will face the attacks of the strong masters of the other 2 cities. Han Fei's heart did a flip. It seemed that this was a 3-way mission. However, they had already begun to obtain the world origin? Was it so easy to obtain the world origin? Han Fei didn't know that if his simple idea was heard by others, they would probably think he was a fool. This was a 3-way battle, and those who entered were all experts. They might not be the strongest, so finding treasures was actually secondary. Surviving was the most important thing. Han Fei asked, is there a world origin fruit in every area? Han Fei couldn't wait. Anyway, he was carrying out the mission alone, so it didn't matter if he killed them all. Bai Ranran looked at Han Fei and snorted. It is estimated that there will be 4 to 5 world origin fruits, and the area must be in the 7 areas divided for you. Whether you can find it or not depends on you. Han Fei didn't ask why she didn't give him a sea map, because for a sea expansion realm cultivator, the screening range of hundreds of millions of kilometers was not small, and it would take a lot of time to check all the areas. In the absence of a sea map, others might not be able to do it, but Han Fei didn't care. He just felt that these world origin fruits were already his. Bai Ranran and the others regarded this as a trial, while Han Fei regarded it as a harvest of resources. After Bai Ranran finished explaining, a heaven-opening realm master came to the camp where Han Fei and the others were. The man was full of killing intent. He glanced at them casually and said, just the 7 of them? Bai Ranran nodded. Yes. The man said, it is said that the Wanderer City and the Primitive City both attach great importance to the 9th land of revival this time. There should be a lot of strong masters there. You'd better be mentally prepared. Bai Ranran nodded. It's okay. The 3 of us will patrol this area. The Emperor nodded slightly. Okay then. In that case, let's not delay any longer. Let's go. Let's wipe out the 9th land of revival quickly. 8 people went to number 3 to investigate, and only 1 came back. It is estimated that in a year at most, that place will become a place of competition. Ordinary kings are not qualified. Bai Ranran nodded slightly and turned to leave. Han Fei and the others naturally followed her. Somewhere in the crevice of the ice, behind the primitive mist, Bai Ranran and the others came to an open space. As a large number of ownerless souls were released, a dark channel appeared in front of them. Han Fei frowned. There seems to be something wrong around here. When someone was about to enter, suddenly, Tian Hong held his Vajra rod horizontally. His eyes suddenly became cold, and a huge stone pillar swept across thousands of kilometers. Clang ripples spread out and swept over. When they saw it clearly, they found that it was a killing array, and it was a strange wall that attacked them. There seemed to be twisted souls on the wall, screaming. From the wall, they could see a lot of withered hands reaching out from it. Tian Hong's rod shattered a large number of twisted bodies, but the wall didn't shatter. At this moment, it was circling around Han Fei and the others. Bai Ranran sneered. She raised her hand and made a seal with one hand. Then, a mystic light seal froze the void. Clang, the strange wall was frozen in the void. Although it seemed to be struggling, it didn't seem to be able to break this seal in a short time. Han Fei frowned. Although Bai Ranran seemed to be making a seal, in fact, she was using the power of the heavenly way to seal the void here. At the same time, she was using the Tao of ice to freeze the space. She even had the ability to make the space slightly viscous like the Snail King. With just a seal, she had fused multiple Taos. This Bai Ranran was really not simple. Ignoring that thing, Bai Ranran turned around and walked unhurriedly into the first dark passage. Although everyone knew that they were ambushed, the leader didn't panic at all. Naturally, there was nothing to panic about. When everyone walked in, a desolate world covered by white sand appeared in front of them. According to the information Han Fei had learned earlier, this white sand should be the remains of the devouring worm. That thing was destroying this world and absorbing the origin of this world. To everyone's surprise, there was no ambush nearby. It seemed that the ambush of the killing array outside was just for show. Bai Ranran said, "Let's explore separately. Attention, people from the primitive city have arrived. They are very strong, and one of them is an array master. This person is called Untufu. He has a butcher's knife in one hand and a killing array in the other. If you run into him, run." Untufu? Han Fei was amused. Someone from the Yin family? It just so happened that he didn't like the Yin family at all. Since this Untufu was comparable to the top 10 of the law enforcement camp, he might as well kill him. Swish, swish, swish. Bai Ranran wasn't here to babysit, so Han Fei and the others found their own way and didn't stay here for long. Han Fei came to a place thousands of kilometers away, took out a fishing hook, and fished in the void. After pulling out the nautical panorama, he also hooked out the 9-palace ruler of destiny. The time fishing technique was really good. One treasure could be used as 2. The nautical panorama turned and pointed in a very clear direction. Han Fei grinned and said, "Fine. Let's get all the world origin fruits first." Chapter 2199. With the strength of the heaven opening state, it was too easy for Han Fei to do things in the Pioneer Sea state. He was willing to spend hundreds of years to create an identity for himself because he hoped to use this identity to subvert the entire scavenger city. While others were still searching, surveying the terrain, and looking for targets, Han Fei had already stepped out of the area he was assigned to. Because there was no world origin fruit here. Only half a day later, Han Fei had crossed 2 areas and came to a strange place with abnormal white sand. Here, sandstorms and tornadoes raged in the sky, and the sea of sand surrounded, as if to swallow Han Fei. Han Fei paused and didn't make a move. Bai Ranran didn't tell him about the token she gave him. She said that anyone who wore this token would not be attacked by the devouring power of the devouring worm. However, when Han Fei came into contact with this tide of sand, he realized that the devouring power would not hinder him, but the endless sand would still hinder his way. Faced with this situation, Han Fei directly turned into a mass of white sand and drilled through this sea of sand. The devouring worm was probably a little confused. Why did this person disappear? He drove the sea of sand with the world origin, but it didn't mean that the entire sea of sand was the body of the devouring worm. If this was the case, how big would its body be? Therefore, when Han Fei's trace was lost, the tide of sand also stopped. Next, Han Fei easily found a blooming flower in the sea of sand. What was hidden in it was a world origin. Han Fei couldn't help grinning. Sure enough, it didn't take him any effort to get it. If he had known that the world origin was so advanced and so easy to obtain, maybe Han Fei would have chosen a different path from the beginning. But now, Han Fei was not in a hurry. It would take others a lot of time to search a sea area. But he had the nautical panorama, which pointed accurately, greatly saving time. Han Fei immediately used the Gemini Divine technique, and the white mist immediately sat cross-legged and threw the world origin fruit into the sea of origin. A pure world origin fruit was integrated into the sea of origin very quickly. In less than half a day, all kinds of plants and trees in Han Fei's relatively barren sea of origin began to grow again. After all, Han Fei's origin sea was nearly 200,000 kilometers long. Before he took the origin of the world, his origin sea was barren. All of his resources had been returned to the origin sea. Since it had returned to its origin, it meant that there was nothing left. But now, with the injection of the world origin energy, the origin sea seemed to have welcomed a new lease of life. Unfortunately, there were too few world origin fruit. Together with the 10th level tribulation pill that Chen Yen gave him, Han Fei felt that his potential had increased by more than 20%. He couldn't help but sigh. It seemed that if he really wanted to dig deeper into the potential of his origin sea, he would need at least 20 world origin fruit. Yes. Wait. Han Fei suddenly felt that something was wrong. He noticed that his spiritual power suddenly decreased by 3 points. According to his experience from 300 years of seclusion, the conversion between mental energy and power was on average 1-for-1. But now it had become 3-for-3? Han Fei didn't pay much attention to it before because it was too inconspicuous. Fortunately, after the power transformation expanded, Han Fei vaguely felt that something was wrong. Swallowing the world origin fruit can improve the transformation speed of soul power and power? Han Fei couldn't help but be overjoyed. What did this mean? This meant that it took him 300 years to transform his soul power and power, but now it might only take him 100 years. Furthermore, he had only eaten a few world origin fruit. What if he took all the world origin fruits in this world? Han Fei couldn't help but grin. The graveyard battlefield, what a good place! Just as Han Fei felt the changes in the origin sea, he suddenly sensed something and looked 1,000,000 kilometers away. Someone was flying over. However, the newcomer was not someone he knew, which meant that he was not from the city of scavengers. Since he was not from the city of scavengers, in case the other party was from the city of wanderers, Han Fei's face quickly changed and he turned into the appearance of an emperor of the origin city that he had seen before. As a result, the person who was sprinting towards Han Fei stopped, looked at Han Fei in astonishment, and said in shock, "Lord Xiang?" Of course, that person immediately realized that something was wrong. Lord Xiang? There were only a few emperors in the graveyard battlefield. If anyone dared to rashly dispatch an emperor and disturb the order of the graveyard battlefield, the consequences would be very serious. They would be targeted by the other two families. Besides, that emperor must die. Therefore, when this person saw Han Fei's appearance, he immediately began to run away. Because he knew that Lord Xiang couldn't be here at all. Han Fei took a look and smiled slightly. Interesting. The first one I met is from the origin city. You're unlucky. Without anyone watching, Han Fei directly accelerated and crossed 600,000 kilometers in the blink of an eye. In just a moment, he blocked in front of that person. Han Fei stared at the infamily's face and said with a smile, "Keep running." The man's face changed drastically. "You can't be an emperor. You're just good at disguising yourself." Han Fei smiled. "So?" The man was shocked by Han Fei's speed. He thought that the origin city should be the first to enter this place, but who would have expected that there would be someone faster? At this moment it was impossible to run away, so he could only fight. A triangular divine mark appeared between this person's eyebrows. As soon as this mark erupted, Han Fei immediately felt that his strength had doubled, and his body overflowed with chaotic energy. This chaotic energy instantly detonated, and was instantly absorbed into the man's body. This person had unleashed all his strength. A sword swept across the sky, dazzling thousands of kilometers. Han Fei had to admit that when he saw this sword, he knew that this person's strength could probably be ranked in the top 200 of the law enforcement camp. If there was no accident, this should be a heavenly talent from the origin city. However, Han Fei stretched out his hand and grabbed casually, and the sky-splitting sword chi was shattered. "How is it possible? How can a sea expansion realm cultivator break my sword with your bare hands?" Han Fei grinned. "Alas. Unfortunately, who told you that I was in the sea expansion realm?" The next moment, before the man had time to continue attacking, he had just summoned his companion spirit. Unfortunately, Han Fei had already slapped him on the head. However, Han Fei didn't kill this person immediately. After searching his soul, he learned that this person's name was Zhao Mo and he was not a member of the infamily. From his memory, Han Fei learned that the origin city was indeed led by a butcher named Entufu. After learning this information, the power in Han Fei's hand erupted. Bam! This person exploded into nothingness, and a blood-colored crack appeared in the sky. This was not the sea realm, so the weather had changed greatly. At this moment, in the number 9 revival land, many people looked up. It had only been 2 days since they came here, and someone had already encountered it? Looking at Han Fei, they only saw that his face, body, form, aura, voice, etc. all became Zhao Mo's. Han Fei smiled lightly. The hunt has begun. Another half a day later, Han Fei found the second world origin fruit as quickly as possible. Anyway, because of his speed advantage, when Han Fei got the second world origin fruit, there was not much change except for causing another sandstorm. After taking this world origin fruit, Han Fei deliberately felt the transformation speed of his soul power and strength, but this time there was no change. Well, it must be because I ate too little. After all, I haven't tapped enough potential. If others knew that Han Fei digested a world origin fruit and didn't even increase his potential by 5%, they would probably be shocked. For example, Nez's clone had digested a world origin fruit and tapped 30% of his potential. In contrast, how strong was the limit of Han Fei's potential? The number 9 revival land was a ranking that had been determined in the cemetery for many years. Perhaps the number 9 primitive graveyard was very strong, so it was ranked 9th in the graveyard battlefield. After so many years, the primitive graveyard had more or less recovered, which was the fundamental reason why there were so many strong masters fighting on the graveyard battlefield. Now, the battle for the number 9 revival land had just begun, and Han Fei had already taken 2 world origin fruit. Even by Ranran, the so-called strongest master of the law enforcement camp, didn't expect this. After taking the second world origin fruit, Han Fei immediately started the tracking for the third one. However, this time, Han Fei wasn't so lucky. After all, he took 2 world origin fruits in a row, which took him 2 or 3 days. When Han Fei found the place where the next world origin fruit was, he found that a battle had broken out. Among them, Han Fei knew one of them. He didn't know his name, but he knew it was a master from the 10,000 Scales clan who came with him. And this master from the 10,000 Scales clan was fighting a demon plant and a master from the primitive city who had performed the god's arrival technique. This was a three-way battle, but the owner of the world origin fruit was nowhere to be seen. Han Fei guessed that the world origin fruit might have been eaten by someone. When Han Fei arrived, the master from the primitive city was overjoyed. He laughed aloud. "Let's see how you can escape today." Han Fei knew this person. After all, he was in Zhao Mo's team. He just searched Zhao Mo's soul, so he naturally recognized him. He shouted in Zhao Mo's tone, "Yunnan, where is the world origin?" Yunnan smiled. "Of course it has been eaten. I wanted to set up a trap, but two came at once. Perfect, one for each of us." When the master from the 10,000 Scales clan and the demon plant saw Han Fei, they left immediately. Originally, the two thought that since the world was so big, it wouldn't be easy for another person to come. Therefore, they felt that they might be able to kill the other party and become the final winner. But now, seeing that another person from the primitive city came, they naturally had to give up. Han Fei faced the master from the 10,000 Scales clan without hesitation. Seeing this, Yunnan went to attack the master from the demon plant. The master from the 10,000 Scales clan was called Yang Wan. He sighed inwardly and prepared to escape through the void. He felt that the other party's strength was not much higher than his. He might not win if he fought head-on, but he would definitely have no problem escaping. After all, he came here for two things. One was to find the world origin fruit, and the other was to undergo the trial and survive. However, after he escaped for less than 10 million miles, he found that there was someone in front of him. Yang Wan's eyes narrowed. "When did you catch up?" Han Fei smiled. "You're about to die. Why do you have so much to say?" Yang Wan sneered. "In the same realm, not many people dare to say that they can kill me. You?" Chapter 2200. Yang Wan was not afraid of fighting, but the moment Han Fei attacked, he did not even have the chance to attack. He was mesmerized and could not move at all. Han Fei strolled in front of him. He couldn't resist that terrifying pressure at all. That was the suppression of the level of life. It was an absolute suppression. You're not a sea expansion cultivator? Who are you?" Han Fei grinned and his face started to change. He wanted to let this person experience despair. When Yi Fengliu's face appeared, Yang Wan was shocked. "It's you," Han Fei said lightly. "Becoming my puppet is an honor for you." Half an hour later. Over there, Yunnan was chasing the demon plant. The two had been fighting in the void for a long time. Sword waves surrounded them. Yunnan sneered. "I heard that everyone in your heaven-chosen team is strong. Why are you so weak?" The demon plant summoned a sky full of void divine thorns and turned it into a domain. But it was ambushed by Yunnan first and was heavily injured. Now its power was greatly reduced, and it had no time to recover. Facing Yunnan, a strong cultivator who had entered the heavenly way, it was preparing to cut off part of its body to cover its retreat. But over here, in just half an hour, the 10,000 scale race strong cultivator who was chased by Zhao Mo ran back. "Damn it, what is Zhao Mo doing? Where is he?" However, Yang Wan, who had become Han Fei's puppet, shouted at the demon plant, "Let's work together and kill this guy from Primordial City first." "How about that?" The demon plant strong cultivator was confused. This person got rid of the chase so quickly? But why did he come back after getting rid of the chase? There was clearly something wrong. But the demon plant was heavily injured and could not run, so it could only reply, "Why didn't you work together just now?" Puppet Yang Wan sneered, "Why don't you care why I didn't work together just now? Do you have a choice? Even if you die, you should at least drag me down with you, right?" Yunnan's face turned cold. "There are no signs of a king perishing here. Zhao Mo is definitely not dead. You still dare to appear? Aren't you afraid of dying here?" Yang Wan chuckled. How can I bear to leave someone who just swallowed the origin source of the world? As for the person you spoke of, he's still trapped by me. He can't even take care of himself, so how would he have the ability to help you?" Without any hesitation, Puppet Yang Wan made his move. They were all top-notch geniuses. Even if there was a gap between their strengths, it was not to the extent of an insurmountable chasm. Yang Wan made his move, but his combat prowess was much higher than before. With a single slash, he broke through a layer of sword domain. He didn't care if the demonic plant attacked or not. He took the initiative to attack Yunnan. Seeing this, the demonic plant, seeing that the sword domain was being destroyed, immediately used a secret technique. Part of its body was instantly incinerated, while it itself turned into a red light and quickly escaped. He didn't believe that this person from the 10,000 Scales tribe would have attacked long ago if he wanted to. Why would he wait until now to appear and join forces with him? Han Fei didn't expect the demonic plant to stay. He just wanted to scare it. The reason why he broke open the sword domain was for the sake of giving this demon plant a chance to escape. Now that the demon plant had escaped, Han Fei naturally didn't bother to hide anymore. In an instant, he appeared in front of Yunnan. The latter's reaction was fast enough. He realized that this person had hidden his strength too well and must be very strong. At this moment, a sword was condensed between his eyebrows. Using his divine soul as a guide, he wrapped the Tao from the triangular divine seal and tried to pierce through Han Fei. However, as soon as the divine soul sword came out from between his eyebrows, he saw two fingers pointing between his eyebrows. Bam! Yunnan was dumbfounded. His head was buzzing, and a small part of his divine soul was cut off by the two fingers. When he came back to his senses, he found that he couldn't move his body anymore. In just half an hour, another puppet of the living dead appeared in front of Han Fei. Apart from the first person who was killed by Han Fei, he had already thought it through when he attacked the second person. If the people from the three forces and the two forces were all killed, the Wanderer City would probably be targeted. These people were all top-notch geniuses who had the potential to split open the sky. It would be a pity if they died just like that. Even if they were going to die, they couldn't just die in vain without an audience. Therefore, Han Fei's current plan was to refine all these people into corpse puppet. At least, he had to muddy the waters. Of course, after Yunnan was killed by Han Fei specially went to his source sea. This guy had just swallowed the world's source, but a large part of the power hadn't been digested yet. As soon as the demon purification pot came out, it sucked crazily. Han Fei thought that after this crazy absorption, he would have another part of the world's source power. However, to his surprise, this time the world's source sucked back by the demon purification pot was directly poured into the fifth divine elixir and was sucked clean in the blink of an eye. Hey, don't grab it! Han Fei was speechless. F***ck. No wonder the little vine in the demon purification pot didn't like to eat ordinary resources recently. So now it was also interested in the world source? After all, there wasn't much world source in the first place. He didn't even get any leftovers from the world source. Fortunately, when the fifth little elixir swallowed this part of the world source, it seemed to have matured a lot. If this continued, maybe it would be ripe after swallowing a few more world source fruit. However, Han Fei didn't feel good. The world source was too precious. He needed it, the fifth divine elixir needed it, Little Black, Little White, and the Emperor Sparrow all needed it. Unfortunately, according to Bai Ranran, there seemed to be only a few of them in each land of revival. How the F***ck was that enough? While Han Fei was struggling, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. In his mind there was information synchronization. Neza's clone? Han Fei immediately perked up. That's right. When he was close to his doppelganger, they would synchronize their information. After all, although they were clones, they were actually separated from the main soul. In a sense, Neza's clone and Zhang Daqian's clone were both part of the main body. According to the synchronized information, Neza was fighting fiercely. Han Fei immediately fished out the nautical panorama, and as the pointer turned, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. The execution time of this mission was 3 years, but it didn't mean that the exploration time of the 9th land of revival would be 3 years. In fact, since this place had almost been eaten up by the devouring worms, there was no need for such a long exploration time. Since it was a battle, they should race against time. Others didn't have the nautical panorama, but Neza did. And the devouring worms were originally set up by the primitive city, so the people of the primitive city should know the location of the world origin fruit better. For Neza to fight with someone so quickly, he must have fallen into an ambush like Yunnan. At this moment, somewhere in the 9th land of revival, in a sandstorm, a fat man holding a guillotine was so thick that it looked like a giant dragon coiled on the blade. This man was obviously Entufu, whom Bai Ranran had mentioned. The one fighting Entufu was Neza with 3 heads and 6 arms. At this moment, the two sides were fighting back and forth, and the winner had not been decided yet. Around them, there were 2 additional battlefields, which were obviously also the battles of the Wanderer City and the Primitive City. However, in a battle of this level, everyone's combat power was equal, so it was actually quite difficult for them to fight to the death. Entufu shouted, "Neza, no matter how many combat methods you have, you're not proficient in them. How can you defeat me? Damn fatty, if you didn't have the god's arrival technique, I would have smashed you to pieces. How dare you be so arrogant to me with a lousy knife?" Entufu wasn't annoyed. He took a deep breath, and his body swelled like a balloon. As he spat, thousands of ghosts, like devils descending, formed a wall of ghouls, trying to surround Neza. And Neza didn't want to be outdone. With a flash of the red silk array condensed, the sword array burst out, and the sword tide surged, resisting the wall of ghouls. The two sides were evenly matched. At this moment, Neza's heart suddenly moved, and a large amount of information was synchronized in his mind. Some new insights, new combat methods, and new power structures appeared. One of the reasons why Neza had been getting stronger and stronger was that he had obtained the inheritance of his original body. Although the Great Tao was different, all kinds of insights, combat methods, and combat skills could be used at will. If he wasn't strong, it would be a waste of his original body's strength. My original body is here too? After more than 300 years, Neza had already reached the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm. In fact, Neza had gathered all the world origin fruits 1 step earlier than his original body. Now, his potential could be said to be fully stimulated. 300 years ago, Neza joined the Heaven Chosen team. 300 years later, he had become one of the top 10. In fact, this Entufu was not his match. However, with the help of bloodline, weapons, and the god's arrival technique, the other party was not weaker than him. At this moment, after 300 years, Neza's information was synchronized with his original body. It was as if he had experienced another 300 years of combat experience in an instant. A lot of insights surged into his mind. He felt that his strength had suddenly increased a little. Entufu only felt puzzled. He thought to himself, how can this damn guy continue to become stronger under such circumstances? Is there any justice in this world? We are all in the Pioneer Sea realm. Is there no limit to your strength? After half an hour, Entufu felt that he couldn't fight anymore. This Neza is crazy. He can still fight after such a long time. He doesn't care about the consumption of energy and resources at all. Entufu shouted, "Neza, it's hard to tell who will win. Why bother? Anyway, this world's origin has been eaten by me. If you have the ability, go and fight the people from the scavenger city. Why are you bothering me?" On the other side, all of a sudden, a bright moon rose into the sky. On the bright moon, there was a scythe moving. An expert from the primitive city was about to be killed. Cicada! In the blink of an eye, Untufu suddenly grew a pair of heavenly cicada wings. He moved as fast as light and blocked the scythe with his guillotine. Taking advantage of the moment when Untufu saved the expert, Neza swung his sword backhandedly. The sword flashed past the bright moon and pierced through Untufu's chest, leaving a big hole. But this was nothing. Untufu didn't care about being hit. However, at the same time as Neza attacked, an iron lump appeared. That iron lump held a huge Vajra pillar and killed the expert from the primitive city, who was almost killed by the scythe with one strike. Tianhong F***CKU. Bang! Neza and Untufu both backed away. Long Yu appeared next to Neza with the scythe in her hand. Tianhong is here. I'm afraid Bai Ranran is here too. And that ghost blade. The three of them have always been together. We can't stay here for long. However, only Neza knew that this wasn't the real Tianhong at all. He was fished out by his real body. Chapter 2201. Unlike his original body, Neza had been in the Heaven-Chosen team for 300 years. He knew clearly who Bai Ranran and Tianhong were. But Han Fei didn't know much about them. Therefore, when their information was combined, Han Fei felt that he had been training in a graveyard battlefield for 300 years. At this moment, Han Fei fished out Tianhong because he wanted to stir up trouble. There were wanderers and people from the primitive city. How could he survive without people from the scavenger city? As a matter of fact, as soon as Tianhong appeared, he killed an expert from Primordial City, even though that expert was already on the verge of being killed. However, Untufu went to save him. Even so, Untufu failed to save him, right? Untufu roared, Tianhong, Bai Ranran is not here. How dare you act presumptuously in front of me? Tianhong's voice was indifferent. I just saw that he was about to die, so I wanted to help him die faster. Bastard. Untufu was exposed. The heavenly cicada wings burst out, and his fat body was as fast as a beam of light. The big guillotine crossed thousands of kilometers and slashed at Tianhong. As for being stabbed by Neza, he didn't care. At this level, if he was stabbed and killed, how could he be called a strong man? Tianhong shook his feet, and the 100-meter sea area collapsed, and billowing waves swept in all directions. On the giant King Kong pillar, the dragon turtle came out and clashed with the big guillotine. After all, the people who came to the number 9 land of revival today were just the vanguard. Originally, they thought it was a good land of revival to develop. As a result, the leaders began to fight with each other. Neza thought that Untufu had been ambushed, but Tianhong got involved. Except for Neza's clone, the others felt strange. Logically speaking, we're all familiar with each other. I've taken the world source here, so it's good that you know. Who the F***CK would really come up to fight? Wouldn't it be a waste of effort? Therefore, Untufu felt that Tianhong was deliberately targeting him. At this time, Han Fei and Neza contacted each other. Han Fei immediately understood Neza's thoughts. Butcher and was just like his name. He was a fierce fighter, but he was easily hot-headed. For example, when he attacked Tianhong, Neza was watching from the side. He wasn't afraid of Neza. This person could be kept. With this kind of personality, he could be guided and used. In addition, Neza, who was the leader of Wanderer City's team, shared another piece of information. What the three sects really needed to fight over was not the 9th revival ground, but the 3rd revival ground. Neza was only here for the origin of the world. Because the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and the licking dog were by his side, even if he had enough world source, the 9-tailed mantis shrimp and the licking dog were still needed. Besides, the function of the origin of the world was far beyond Han Fei's understanding. It had a deeper function, which was to improve bloodlines. Besides, Han Fei also got a question from Neza's clone. In the sea expansion realm, when one completely opened their source sea, their potential would be completely unearthed and consumed. This required a period of time. It was not to say that one's fighting prowess would skyrocket after devouring the world's origin energy and unlocking one's potential. This also needed to be measured through a large number of battles. However, as for the combat power of the peak stage of the sea expansion realm, because countless people had reached this level, their strength tended to be similar. How could they distinguish who was stronger? According to the information Neza got, the strength of the peak stage of the sea expansion realm could reach 500,000 waves, which was almost the upper limit. However, this 500,000 was relative. It was measured according to the different bloodlines and talents of the cultivators. For example, Neza's current strength was about 460,000 wave. If he completely digested the potential of the world source, he might be able to approach the 500,000 mark. But it was difficult to break through this level. Before Han Fei opened the sky, his strength limit reached 560,000 wave. What caused this gap? According to Neza's understanding, the root cause of such a gap was the level of bloodline. However, the gap caused by the level of bloodline was limited and could be made up for. Otherwise, when countless strong masters of the same realm gathered together, how could they distinguish who was stronger? And this distinction was the Great Ways. The Wanderer City was an open country, where people could get a lot of information from the outside world. After all, many people came from the outside world. According to the information from the outside world, the various Great Ways were divided by a major category. In the Eastern Sea Divine Prefecture, there was the Myriad Dao ranking, the Bloodline ranking, the Race ranking, the Battle Skill ranking, the Great Technique ranking, the Dharma ranking. In any case, any ranking that one could think of would actually have a distinction between the top and the bottom. These, combined, were the key factors to determine whether a person was strong or not. Therefore, there was the saying of climbing the list. Many people, in order to become stronger, kept climbing up the list, looking for higher-level combat skills, techniques, and so on. In fact, things like bloodlines could also be improved. Han Fei had always thought that the bloodline swallowing was a special benefit given to him by the demon purification pot, and only he had it. However, from the information of Neza's soul, he clearly knew that the world source could strengthen bloodlines. As for how to strengthen it, he just had to integrate the direction of his evolution with the world source. This integration didn't have a particular order. For example, if he swallowed too much world source now, he could devour other bloodlines in the future. As long as he used the world source to slowly devour this bloodline, his own bloodline would change. In other words, at the peak of the sea expansion stage, bloodlines were no longer fixed and could already be interfered with. And different bloodlines meant different potentials. As for the difference in bloodline level, the further one cultivated, the greater the gap in battle prowess would be. Therefore, Neza was now competing for the world source to improve his bloodline. After all, there was still a gap between Neza and himself. When Neza first swallowed the world source, he tapped 30% of his potential at once. But after eating 4 or 5 of them, he only managed to tap 20% of his potential. Of course, this also had something to do with the fact that he was already in the heaven-opening state. After all, there was a big gap between them. After synchronizing a lot of intelligence information, Neza's idea was to let Ntufu and the others go first. At least not kill them right now. Because in the number 9 revival land, there was really nothing that could cause strong masters of this level to fight one after another. If people at Tianhong's level and Ntufu's level died here, it was likely to affect the exploration of the semi-starting land later. The so-called semi-starting land was also known as the number 3 revival land. Because it had been revived for a long time and had been restricted, the strong masters didn't want to open it prematurely. The reason why they didn't want to open it prematurely was because of the competition in the Divine Capital Dynasty. The number 3 revival land would decide some of the people who would go to the Divine Capital Dynasty. At the same time, it would also give some strong masters a chance to make a last-minute effort. Therefore, the ninth land of resurgence was just a simple competition. There weren't many big shots who came. For example, Ranran and the other two came, but they brought 7 trial participants. The same was true for the Wanderer City and the Primitive City. Han Fei understood what Neza meant, and so did Neza. While Han Fei and Neza were exchanging information, Tian Hong and Entufu had a head-on fight. Tian Hong might be a little weaker than Entufu, so he was blasted away by the furious Entufu. But Neza turned around and said, "People from the Wanderer City, come with me." Neza left. Entufu shivered and knew that it was time for him to go. One person died. Did he have to wait for Ranran and Ghostblade to come? It was enough for him to deal with Tian Hong and Ghostblade, but Ranran was not easy to deal with. But Entufu felt that it might be embarrassing to leave like this, so he said, "Tian Hong, tell Ranran that I'm waiting for her in the number 3 revival land." However, at this moment, a cold voice sounded. "I'm coming. You don't have to wait." Entufu's heart skipped a beat and he looked into the distance. Who else could it be but Ranran? F***ck, Entufu wanted to escape with the rest of the people from the Primitive City, but in fact, that person was already running. However, Ranran's figure flashed, and she grabbed that person from the void. With a handprint, that person exploded. Entufu wanted to save him, but he didn't dare to move, because Ranran had arrived and Ghostblade must be nearby. He couldn't beat the 3 of them, so he had to run. But he had no choice. He had lost 2 people this time, so he had to die for nothing. Cicada, the heavenly cicada, flapped its wings. Entufu ran very fast, and Ranran didn't chase him. When Entufu ran out of sight, Ranran's appearance and body shape began to change. This time, the sexy long legs turned into thick legs, and the muscles all over her body were bulging. Yes, this person was Han Fei. Who else could it be? He was a damned woman again, but who knew? Hey! Billions of kilometers away, Ranran and the other 2 were looking for the life origin fruit. However, even Ranran was very surprised. She went to several places in a row and found that the world origin had been dug out. Just when Ranran was wondering who was so fast, Tian Hong suddenly turned his head and shivered all over. Ranran asked, "What's wrong?" Tian Hong's voice was dull. "I don't know. I feel a little sore in my body, as if I just fought a battle." Chapter 2202. Han Fei had only been here for a few days, and 4 world origin fruits had already been picked. Theoretically, he might have met Neza earlier. But Neza's clone was not alone. He was the leader of the team in the City of Wanderers this time. Otherwise, Neza, who had the navigator, could have gotten at least 2 world origin fruits by now. At this moment, after Neza and the others retreated, Long Yu asked, "Why did Tian Hong and the others appear at this time? If they knew that we were fighting Entufu, why didn't they show up later?" Neza nodded. "Maybe they have other purposes. Ranran and the Ghostblade didn't show up, so it's hard to say whether they are ambushing us or not. But in any case, let's ignore them and continue to patrol." Half a day later, they were still at the same place where the battle had just started. Ranran and the others were always a step slower than Han Fei. When they came here, they found that there had been a great battle here. Besides, a king had died here not long ago. No matter who it was, they had to come and investigate. As a matter of fact, as soon as they arrived, they saw a wall of ghouls moving to surround them. Tian Hong immediately took action. He swung his giant rod horizontally, and a dull voice came from his armor. "Entufu!" Ha ha ha! The figure of Entufu appeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away, and his hand was pinching Yang Wan's body. Butcher and roared, "Damn scavenger, how dare you eat my world's origin? I don't know who gave you the courage. Ranran, I heard that you were leading the team, so I was waiting for you here." Then, before Tian Hong broke through the wall of ghouls, Yang Wan's body was directly crushed. Now that he had gotten the relevant information from Nez's clone and knew that the number 3 revival land was the real purpose of this trip, Han Fei naturally wouldn't attack Bai Ranran and the others. However, it didn't mean that Han Fei would do nothing after he came here. As long as he didn't attack the leader, he could do whatever he wanted to the other heavenly talent. Anyway, intensifying the conflict between the scavenger city and the primitive city would only bring him benefit. How could Bai Ranran tolerate the fact that Han Fei, disguised as Ntufu, killed a strong expert on her side? The main purpose of their trip was to lead the team and select the strongest. This time, apart from the 3 of them, there were 7 people left. Although their strength was not as good as theirs, they could still be counted as the top 100 in the law enforcement camp. At least, there were definitely some who were in the top 200. It was not easy to cultivate such an expert. Ntufu killed his man in front of him. How could he tolerate that? Bai Ranran's figure flickered, and an invisible giant seal slammed into the wall of ghouls. In the blink of an eye, the wall, which was originally hard to deal with, was covered with cracks. A large number of demons, ghosts, and monsters on the wall collapsed in an instant. Han Fei roared with laughter when he saw this, and then he flickered away, leaving only a string of curses behind in the sky. Bai Ranran, I'll let you off today, but sooner or later, I'll fuck you into bed. Han Fei didn't care anyway. In the past, when he was in a chaotic battle, he could say anything he wanted. It could not be said that he had lost his former personality after becoming a Renhuang. His words caused Bai Ranran's heart to tremble with rage. She clenched her fists tightly as she waited for an opportunity to kill this fatty. Achu, the real Ntufu, had already gone to other places. He rubbed his nose on the way and muttered, 2 of them are gone. It's all that B***tch Bai Ranran's fault. I'm doomed. I'm going to be scolded when I go back. The 2 who died must be cursing me. As the **T stirrer, Han Fei had swallowed 3 world origins anyway. In theory, even if there were still world origins in the number 9 land of revival, there would only be 1 left at most. He had already swallowed 3 of them. Although one of them was forcibly taken away by the demon purification pot, it was still his own gain. Han Fei was wondering if he should leave the last world origin fruit to Nez's clone if it was still there. The reason why Han Fei was sure that Neza could get it was because Neza had the nautical globe. The effect of this sacred artifact was far better than some of the so-called divine artifacts. If it weren't for this Ntufu, Neza would have already taken 1 world origin. Just when Han Fei fished the nautical globe again and pointed out the direction, most of the people who entered the field this time were still searching for the world origin. Someone was speechless. Wait. I've searched everywhere. There's no world origin at all. Is it not in my area? Someone wondered. Someone seems to have fought here. Am I too slow? How unlucky. I'm already fast enough. Someone cursed. Humph, it seems that we can only fight for it in other places. Some of these people found traces of fighting, and some thought that there was no world origin in their area at all. Some simply said that they didn't get the treasure and encountered an enemy, so a fierce battle was inevitable. Clatter, Han Fei hummed a tune. It felt really good to be in such a place where no one was suppressing him. To him, the 9th land of resurgence was like a walk in the green. In less than half a day, Han Fei had come to the place where the origin of the world was theoretically located along the nautical panorama. When Han Fei arrived, a sandstorm had already broken out here. This situation meant that there was someone in the sandstorm. Unfortunately, in this case, his perception couldn't penetrate into the sandstorm, so Han Fei didn't know who was inside. Out of caution, Han Fei still had the puppet of the living dead. Considering that Yunnan might not be able to defeat the guy in the sandstorm, Han Fei immediately used the Gemini Divine technique and turned his body of white mist into Zhao Mo's appearance. This time, on the primitive city's side, 4 people were killed by Han Fei. They were not 4 cabbages, but 4 top kings who could rank among the top 200 in the law enforcement camp and might even be able to open the sky. Han Fei thought of something and the two of them rushed into the sandstorm together. When the two of them finally broke through the sandstorm, they saw that the 10,000 scaled clanmen were also breaking through the sandstorm. Han Fei remembered this man. When he was at the city gate, this man looked at him with slight disdain. He was also the only member of the 10,000 scaled clan who clearly disliked Han Fei. Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road. Hey, bye-bye. Wu Hai's heart sank when he saw 2 more people emerge from the sandstorm. What a coincidence. He thought he was fast enough. It only took him a few days to determine the location and find the origin of the world. He didn't expect that he would encounter enemies now. He thought that the sandstorm must have attracted their attention, so he was exposed. However, what he didn't understand was why the other party came together. Although this was a competition for the origin of the world, it was also a trial. As a powerhouse at the peak of the sea expansion realm, the probability of encountering each other in this area was actually not small. After all, their perception range was millions of kilometers, and they could travel billions of kilometers in a day. The probability of encountering each other was not small. In the past few days, he had killed 2 people in a row, one from the primitive city and the other from the city of wanderers. Although he failed to kill them, both of them were seriously injured by him. How could there be other people here? As a matter of fact, Wu Hai immediately crushed a jade slip. It should be a communication jade slip. Han Fei thought to himself, is there such a thing? Why don't I have one? However, even if Bai Ran ran as fast as she could, it would take at least a few hours to get here. While they were fighting, Han Fei had already sneaked away. With the multitude navigator, Han Fei could find the world origin fruit directly. He was not in a hurry to pick the world origin fruit. After he picked it, the sandstorm would be gone, and it would be 2 against 1 inside. When someone came, he would let them witness the feeling of his family dying in front of him. After more than half an hour, Han Fei suddenly saw that the guy from the 10,000 scale clan had taken out a jade token from his vision. A sword shadow burst out from the piercing tomb and killed Yunnan in 1 strike. Huh! Rumble. Han Fei was speechless. That was too much. Yunnan was not weak at all. He was insta-killed with 1 strike. Obviously, that guy cheated. He actually carried the strike of a powerhouse with him. In fact, even a heaven-opening state cultivator wouldn't dare to say that he could kill a peak-level C expansion cultivator with 1 blow. But that sword light did it. Han Fei's eyes turned cold. Such a heaven-opening state cultivator must be at least in the top 50 of the Lord list. Otherwise, kings were not cabbages. How could they be insta-killed from a distance? Although Han Fei could do it too, his real combat power might only be among the top 10 lords. Killing a king was nothing to be proud of. Wu Hai roared at the white mist, "Do you want to die too? Don't push me too far, or I'll make you follow in his footsteps." However, would Han Fei listen to him? If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to waste time, Han Fei could have killed him instantly. Han Fei didn't leave. Instead, he ignited his blood and swung the saber in his mouth at Wu Hai with a ferocious Dao aura. Bam! 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 A layer of blue-black armor appeared on Wu Hai's body. After being hit by the blade, the entire armor almost collapsed, and Wu Hai spurted out blood crazily. Huh! Han Fei frowned. I attacked him personally, but that guy didn't even get seriously injured and only lost a set of armor? This guy is not bad. Ha ha ha, Wu Hai laughed. Let's see what else you can do. I'm a member of the Wu family, one of the top 10 lords. I'm bound by hundreds of treasures. How can you break me so easily? At this time, Han Fei sensed that Neza had arrived and knew that he couldn't keep up the act for long. Since Neza had arrived, Butcher and should be arriving soon too. It didn't take long for them to leave one after another. Besides, when he came here, Bai Ran and the others were not far away. Just as Han Fei expected, when Han Fei guessed that they were not far away, Neza's clone encountered by Ranran and the others. Chapter 2203. Neza's clone met by Ranran? He hadn't seen by Ranran's strength, but he knew Tian Hong and Ghostblade's strength. In terms of pure strength, Neza shouldn't be as strong as Tian Hong. However, if Neza's clone's potential was fully unleashed, Sky Hong and Ghostblade wouldn't be his match. Han Fei had never seen Bai Ranran fight in person. She should be the strongest in the city of scavengers. He couldn't tell the difference between the strongest, the second strongest, and the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth strongest. But with his understanding of the peak of sea expansion, he shouldn't be stronger than his past self. Even if Bai Ranran had used her world source energy to dig out all her potential in the sea expansion realm. After all, be it bloodline, spiritual vein, talent, battle technique, or cultivation technique, Bai Ranran should not be able to compete with him in any of them. Another reason why Han Fei didn't think that Bai Ranran was as strong as he used to be was that from the memory of Neza's clone, he learned that Bai Ranran had a one-on-one battle with Ntufu. Although Ntufu was brutally beaten, he didn't die. Neza and Ntufu had fought one-on-one before. Their strength was about the same, and neither was stronger than the other. It could be seen that the combat power of the peak stage of the sea expansion realm would eventually become the gap in comprehensive combat power, although Han Fei felt that comprehensive combat power was incalculable after reaching a certain realm. Roar! Han Fei was considering whether he should chop Wu Hai into pieces while Bai Ranran came in. But then a roar was heard. Who else could it be but Ntufu? Motherf *Ker, another one. I want to see who can kill my people. Han Fei frowned. Good heavens, the masters of the three families are here. As the masters of the other families arrived, Han Fei, who was disguised as Zhao Mo, completely broke out. The simulated triangular divine seal appeared between his eyebrows, and divine power descended. His whole body was stained with blood, and he didn't hesitate to burn his life energy. The severed arm turned into a cold saber light. Seeing this, Wu Hai's expression changed greatly. Are you crazy? This is just a trial, why must we fight to the death? However, Han Fei didn't listen at all. He pretended to attack with all his strength, and Wu Hai could only brace himself to block it. He took out the token once again. It seemed that he was going to take out more cheats to kill Han Fei. The corners of Han Fei's mouth rose slightly. Do you want to die? It would be great if they were all dead. Moreover, he had disguised himself as a celestial phenomenon. A wisp of divine soul burst out from between Han Fei's eyebrows, bursting out the combat power of Sky Splitter. When the sword light from the token slashed down, it was not as invincible as before. However, it was an attack from one of the 10 great lords after all, and Han Fei could only barely resist it. After 5 or 6 seconds, his defense was finally broken. Han Fei's body was shredded into pieces, and Wu Hai's condition was not much better. He was severely injured by Han Fei's sneak attack, and a small part of his divine soul was annihilated. For a moment, he was like a retard, unable to differentiate between north, south, east, and west. The battle in the sandstorm naturally attracted the attention of Bai Ranran and Ntufu. Bai Ranran didn't bother with Neza and charged straight into the sandstorm. Ntufu also rushed in without hesitation. Yunnan had already died, and he didn't want another one to die. Otherwise, most of the people he led this time would have died. Most importantly, this was only the 9th land of revival. In their eyes, this was just a normal trial that was not very dangerous. It was just to train new people. Han Fei controlled Zhao Mo and roared in the end, the 10,000 Scales clan doesn't care about martial ethics. Use the power of sky opening. BM. As soon as Zhao Mo shouted this, he exploded. However, no one knew that he had manipulated time and reshaped the celestial phenomenon of the collapse of the Great Way. At the moment when Ntufu rushed over, Zhao Mo was gone. The crack of the Great Way appeared, and Big Red kept roaring. F***CKU, cicada. This time, Untufu was furious. I'm right in front of him, but he's gone in less than a second. Ghost Blade and Untufu arrived at the battlefield almost at the same time. Untufu saw that Wu Hai's token was still there, and there was still the power of the sky opening state here. At this moment, a small part of Wu Hai's divine soul was annihilated, and he had lost his combat power. Untufu immediately rushed at this person in rage. Cicada, two beams of light collided in the void. Untufu roared, "Get lost!" The big guillotine slashed out, and Ghost Blade blocked it with his dual blades, but failed to take Wu Hai down. After all, although he was fast, the talent of the celestial cicada family was speed. At this moment, Untufu was trembling with anger. Good. What a scavenger city! What a great power of sky opening! You don't follow the rules? Damn it, do you still want to play? If you have the guts, wait for me in the number 3 land of revival. I'll kill all of you. Bai Ranran and Tian Hong arrived one after another. Bai Ranran frowned slightly. She didn't expect this either. She knew Wu Hai, the descendant of the Wu family, which ranked 7th among the top 10 lords. He was also one of the strongest seedlings among the top 10 lords in the past 100 years. He ranked 67th in the internal battalion. In Bai Ranran's mind, Wu Hai was one of the people who was least likely to die. However, he was caught by Untufu at this moment. It seemed that he was going to die. Untufu, on the other hand, was brimming with murderous intent. The coiling dragon on the guillotine seemed to have come to life. It bit Wu Hai and tore him in half. Bai Ranran watched as hundreds of ghostly figures tore at Wu Hai's body, swallowing him whole. Boom, the crack of the great path reappeared, but it couldn't appease Untufu's anger. He gnashed his teeth and said, "It's just the number 9 land of revival. Can't you just fight for it honestly? Bai Ranran, this is the second time. Do you really think I'm scared of you?" Bai Ranran didn't care about Untufu's words at all. She looked at Ghost Blade and said, "Source of the world." Buzzing, Ghost Blade disappeared. He was looking for the source of the world. However, Neza was one step ahead of Ghost Blade. Neza arrived with Long Yu and another young man. Long Yu even exclaimed in surprise, "Neza, your navigator is so useful, isn't it? If other people know about this, they will definitely hunt you down like crazy." Neza's clone said, "Shoo. Don't talk big. Only the 3 of us know about this. If you keep yelling, the whole world will know." Long Yu didn't care. Heh. Bai Ranran and Untufu are probably fighting now. To be honest, I didn't expect it to be so big. It's only the number 9 land of revival, and they're already fighting like this. Won't they go crazy when they get to the number 3 half of the starting ground? Neza's clone said, "What do you know? If it weren't for my real body, do you think a bunch of people on both sides would have died? That's just what I saw. I guess I killed a few people who didn't see it." Suddenly, Neza's clone thought of something. He shook the red armillary sash and flew out. "Ghost Blade, the thing is in my hands. Do you think you can take it?" After that, Neza's clone dashed out. Long Yu, on the other hand, harvested the source of the world with her scythe. Next to Long Yu, a weird-looking Treant demon plant with 6 spears on its back was spinning the 2 short spears in its hands. "Do you want to keep this Ghost Blade?" Long Yu said, "You're thinking too much. The Ghost Blade is too fast, and he can turn around and die for himself. Neza has killed him 3 times but still couldn't kill him. How can you keep it?" Boom, the world origin fruit was picked, and the power of the devouring worms disappeared. The entire sandstorm suddenly stopped in the air and scattered. Bai Ranran and Untufu were engaged in a fierce battle. However, no matter how arrogant Untufu was about killing Bai Ranran, he was sent flying by a series of hand seals. Even the wall of ghouls didn't work. Untufu was also puzzled. "You killed 2 people on my side with a sneak attack. Now, someone on your side killed 2 people on my side with an external method of the heaven creation state. Shouldn't I be the angry one? Why do I feel like you're even angrier than me? Untufu didn't know that someone had already used his image to show off in front of Bai Ranran, and even said that he would sleep with her in public. How could Bai Ranran tolerate that? She didn't talk much in the first place. Since they were enemies, it was up to you to kill my people. Then I'll get them back when I have a chance. However, this rude Untufu was full of filthy words and provoked her directly. He didn't take her seriously. Besides, Wu Hai, whom she valued the most, was killed. How could she not be angry? Seeing the earth-shattering battle, a streak of fire crossed the sky. The ghost blade returned to the battlefield on Bai Ranran's side. Tian Hong and the ghost blade blocked Neza's clone. Neza said indifferently, "Scavenger City, you use the power of the heaven creation state. Do you have an explanation?" Untufu also roared, "Bai Ranran, you be *tc. I'm not going to let you have a good time when we go back. Neza, do you dare to join hands and kill these 3? Neza's clone pretended to think for a moment. "Okay." Bai Ranran naturally kept explaining. Wu Hai's identity was extraordinary. It was normal for him to have the means of the heaven creation state. Even if Wanderer City and Primitive City wanted to hold this matter accountable, they had ways to quibble. It didn't matter. Neza's clone charged at the Ghost Blade and Tian Hong alone. Outside the chaotic battle, Long Yu and the strange tree man were watching. Long Yu said, "Li Kuli, do you want to help?" The 2 of them estimated that, if they went all out, they might really have a chance to kill one of them. Suddenly, the 2 of them looked back at the same time. 1,000,000 miles away, they saw a man covered in red scales with a long saber floating on his back. Chapter 2204. When everyone saw Han Fei appear, Bai Ranran and her team were the first to be a little stunned. Bai Ranran calculated in her heart. If she remembered correctly, the area where Yi Fenglu was 3 areas away from here. Why did he come here? However, at this moment, Bai Ranran and the others didn't think much about it. Han Fei, on the other hand, slashed out from hundreds of thousands of kilometers away with a fierce slash similar to the Tao Convergence sword art. Han Fei clasped his hands behind his back and slashed at the knife. Wherever he passed, knife chi was generated and knife waves surged. To be honest, everyone was stunned by his appearance. Untufu's heart sank. He didn't know this guy at all. And this person was obviously attacking Long Yu and Li Canli. Was he from the Scavenger City? However, this way of appearance was too ridiculous. Was this guy pretending to be cool? Next to Long Yu, Li Canli's eyes turned cold. "Let me do it." A large number of branches suddenly grew out of the treeman's body. Then, these branches began to unfold, and small silver needle-like leaves grew on them. Swish, 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 countless small leaves shot out from the void and turned into spears. They also absorbed the power in the void and exploded. However, when these 2 endless spears collided with Han Fei's saber waves, they were almost crushed by a crushing force. Not good. Long Yu's expression changed slightly. "Let me help you." Clatter like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. When Long Yu's scythe rose, a darkness covered Han Fei, and the scythe domain tried to harvest Han Fei. Clang, 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 clang. Bai Ranran frowned and cursed in her heart, "Idiot. Do you really think this is an arena battle? In actual combat, whoever has a trump card that can kill people will use it directly. Besides, you haven't fought with these people yet." However, in the darkness, a sword mark suddenly flashed, and a dazzling knife light rose into the sky like a scorching sun. Everyone's pupils constricted. This knife light actually carried a soul attack, which made them lose their vision for an instant. Puff, in the blink of an eye, there was a sound of a body exploding. Long Yu exclaimed, "Not good, World Origin." The characteristic of the World Origin fruit was that it couldn't be put into the Sea of Origin. Once it was put into the Sea of Origin, it had to be refined on the spot. In such a chaotic battle, Long Yu had no time to refine it. Furthermore, this world source was not snatched by him, Long Yu had only taken it. Who could know that the moment her domain was broken, the world origin would be snatched away? One of Long Yu's arms exploded into pieces, and Han Fei had already appeared 1,000 kilometers away, grabbing the source of the world with one hand. Ran. As the descendant of the Celestial clan, Fei's speed. However, Fei's dragon ran Li's Fei's left. In that instant, he borrowed the heavenly Tao and turned himself into a part of the blade light. The instant he unfolded Long Yu's arm, he also used the great Tao of space. Before Long Yu and Li Canli could react, he had already escaped. Clang, Nez's clone knocked away the ghost blade with a universe ring, wrapped up Tian Hong's Vajra pillar with the red sky silk, and left the battlefield in an instant. The fire-tipped spear in his hand stabbed at Yi Fei's body. In any case, the world origin had been snatched away. As the leader, he had to do something. However, Nez's clone only had time to make one shot. Clang! At this moment, Han Fei's body calmly drew out the long knife in his hand, flicked his thumb, and the long knife was unsheathed. The world was eclipsed by the draw technique. Clang! The two attacks collided, and Han Fei took advantage of the momentum to retreat thousands of kilometers, dodging an extremely fast spear, and stepped on the ground, covering the area with a knife prison. Ran was surprised. What an amazing movement technique! Yi Fengluo's strength was not strong enough to crush Long Yu and Li Canli. However, his movement technique in that instant was simply too beautiful. Besides, according to her previous understanding of Han Fei, she didn't know that Han Fei knew the Tao of space. Nez's clone's attack failed, and Long Yu pointed at Han Fei with her scythe. "How dare you steal my world origin? I won't spare you." Han Fei said indifferently, "It's mine now." Long Yu scoffed. "You're bragging. Do you really think I can't beat you?" Han Fei held the long knife horizontally, and with a backhand, he put his hand on his waist, where a kitchen knife had appeared out of nowhere. "Huh!" Ghost Blade couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone knew that Han Fei used a knife, but they only knew that Han Fei's knife couldn't be unsheathed easily. However, no one knew that Han Fei had another knife. Butcher and slashed crazily with his big guillotine, stalling by Ran, and at the same time shouted, "Neza, can't you kill a small fry?" However, Neza's clone retreated and said indifferently, "Let's go." Long Yu and Li Canli were surprised. "What?" Long Yu said anxiously. "He snatched our world origin." Han Fei looked at Long Yu and said firmly, "It's just a piece of world origin." Long Yu and Neza's clone had worked together for 300 years, and they had never seen anyone take out a dagger. This could only mean that they had underestimated the guy who used a knife. Long Yu immediately shut up, but she still asked Han Fei's clone, "What's your name?" "He's a Japanese girl. I'm sure he'll beat you up." Han Fei said indifferently, "Yi Fenglu from the City of Scavengers." "Humph." Neza wanted to stop, so Ghost Blade and Tian Hong didn't have to chase after him. They couldn't kill Neza in the first place. Now that Neza had retreated, there was no need to chase after him. Butcher and was furious. "Neza, you coward! Aren't you very arrogant? Is it hard to beat my city of origin? What? You don't dare to fight a nobody from the City of Scavengers?" Neza's clone looked at Butcher and, "Idiot, if you say one more word, I'll kill you with them first." And Butcher Anne's heart lurched. If Neza retreated, it would be 1 against 4 on his side. If Neza attacked again, how could he fight 7 on his side? Immediately, and Butcher cursed, flapped his heavenly cicada wings, turned into a glazed shadow, and retreated quickly. Anyway, this kind of person could be arrogant or timid, and he ran away faster than anyone else. Ran didn't chase after him, because she knew that Butcher hadn't shown his real strength yet. After the others left, Ran looked at Han Fei. "Why are you here?" Han Fei said indifferently, "The map you gave me is empty. I found it all the way here." Bai Ranran was surprised. How did you get here so fast? Han Fei ignored her, removed the knife domain, and looked at the world origin in his hand. This one is mine, right? Bai Ranran thought of the great Tao of space that Han Fei had just unleashed and couldn't help but ask, why didn't you tell me in advance that you are a great Tao of space? Han Fei looked up at Bai Ranran. I only fought in the arena before, so I didn't use it. Besides, no one can force me to use it, just like no one can easily force me to draw my knife. Bai Ranran didn't know what to say. After all, he was the strongest expert in the Pioneer Sea realm in the City of Scavengers. Although Han Fei was rude, as the team leader, she couldn't blame him. Besides, this time, it was her team that was selecting members. It was a good thing that Han Fei was strong. Bai Ranran guessed and doubted him just because she didn't know him. Ghostblade said coldly, "Kid, be more polite when you speak." Han Fei said indifferently, "I'll beat you up sooner or later." Ghostblade, Bai Ranran. Bai Ranran narrowed her eyes. Now that we've met and you've got the world origin, hurry up and absorb it, and then catch up. Han Fei said in his emotionless voice, "Do as you please. I guess the world origin is gone." Bai Ranran asked, "Why do you think so?" Han Fei said, "I've already eaten one, and the other was eaten by the primitive city. This is the third one. So far, I've only seen 3. Even if there are more, no one has picked them." Bai Ranran couldn't help but be surprised. "You've already eaten one?" Han Fei asked. "No?" It turned out that in the next few days, Bai Ranran and the others really didn't get a single world origin fruit. This time, the one who gained the most was Yi Fenglu. This trial lasted for a total of 17 days. It wasn't until they left the battlefield that Bai Ranran and the others learned that 5 people from Primordial City and 3 from Scavenger City had died in this operation. Only Wanderer City had suffered the fewest casualties, with only 1 death. After Entufu returned, he was furious and crazily condemned the Scavenger City for repeatedly using the power of sky opening. However, this kind of restraint was not very effective. Except for causing the 2 sides to start another round of war in the graveyard battlefield, there was no benefit. And for the next period of time, Han Fei went to the battlefield every day to watch the war. Because in the graveyard battlefield, in addition to exploring the primitive graveyard, there was also a place to declare war. Because of the number 9 revival land, the 2 sides had been fighting for a month. Every day they clamored and challenged each other. Han Fei had participated in this kind of battle once. After killing a king of the primitive city with a single slash, he never had a chance to participate again. That was because the battles here were usually fought in a situation where both sides were evenly matched. As they fought, it was actually not easy for anyone to die. Han Fei's killing of a king with a single slash was really remembered by many kings of the primitive city. In addition, according to Entufu's description, Han Fei and Neza exchanged a spear attack and snatched the world origin from Long Yu and Li Canli. Oh my god, who are these people? They're from the Heaven-Chosen team. This level was equivalent to the top 100 of the law enforcement camp and the descendants of the infamily. Who dared to provoke them? Therefore, Han Fei could only come to watch the show every day. Others thought that Han Fei just came to watch the battle, but in fact, Han Fei was just calculating how many real experts were in the scavenger camp. How could he make a move to kill as many people as possible? Chapter 2205. Han Fei's behavior of watching the show lasted for more than 3 months. During this period, he also carried out 2 missions to the primitive graveyard. After all, the relationship between the Scavenger City and the Primordial City had been tense recently. Therefore, coincidentally, Han Fei dealt with the primitive graveyard that had disputes with the Primordial City. He killed 4 kings of the primitive graveyard in 2 trips, which was witnessed by Bai Ranran and the others. As for Han Fei himself, it seemed that he had only completed a trivial task. Every day, apart from watching the show on the battlefield, He used his authority to read some historical information about the graveyard battlefield. Until one day 3 months later, Han Fei was about to watch the show, when Ghost Blade suddenly appeared in front of him. Ghost Blade said, "A new mission has arrived, a big mission. Gather immediately." Han Fei's heart moved. Ghost Blade specifically mentioned a big mission, which made Han Fei think of something. Is the number 3 revival ground going to start? When Han Fei and Ghost Blade came to a camp, they found that there were already 200 people gathered here. Han Fei was surprised. He knew that more people would go to the number 3 revival ground, but he didn't expect there to be so many. There were only 7 people left in the team that Bai Ranran led. This time, there was a strong man from the 10,000 Scales clan standing next to Bai Ranran. Behind him stood 9 members, which seemed to be a specially formed team of 10. After Han Fei came in, the man glanced at Han Fei indifferently and didn't say anything. But Han Fei could feel that the man didn't seem to take him seriously. After a while, when everyone had arrived, Bai Ranran said, "Everyone, listen up. This time, you will participate in an ultimate mission that is hard to come by in 10,000 years. There are billions of primitive graveyards in the chaotic wasteland, and primitive graveyards are constantly reviving. This time, we found a primitive graveyard that is about to be revived and can be called the starting ground." Hiss, the starting ground? How many opportunities are there? Many people were excited. The starting ground. One starting ground was equivalent to 100 or even 1,000 primitive graveyards. Even the primitive graveyards that were reviving couldn't be compared to the starting ground. These people's hearts were pounding. Could it be that they had a chance to participate in the exploration of the starting ground this time? Bai Ranran said, "Don't celebrate too early. You only know that the starting ground has many opportunities, but you don't know that the starting ground is also an extremely dangerous place. In history, every time the starting ground appeared, a great sacrifice had to be made. The only thing you can rejoice about is that this is the revived starting ground. The danger here is much lower than the real starting ground. But even so, you can't underestimate him." After Bai Ranran finished talking to these people, she gathered the members of the team. Bai Ranran said, "You should have heard it too. This is our real mission. We just wanted to show you the land of revival and obtain some resources. As for the starting ground, it would be a place that the Scavenger City, the Wanderer City, and the Primordial City would fight for. For the sake of this place, dozens of experts have already died. Even one heaven-opening expert has died, so you should know how rare this opportunity is." Beside Han Fei, the people chosen by Bai Ranran all looked solemn. Han Fei frowned slightly. "So many people?" Bai Ranran said, "This is an exploration, but it's also a trial. However, the people selected for this trial were a little special. Those who are chosen will participate in a great opportunity that you will almost never encounter in your lifetime." Han Fei realized that the so-called Great Opportunity referred to the opportunity of the Divine Capital Dynasty's grand competition. In this 100,000-year competition, those who could survive had a high chance of splitting open the sky. For Sea Expansion Realm experts, splitting open the skies was the greatest opportunity. Many people had been pondering over splitting open the sky for tens of thousands of years to no avail. However, it was just a trip to the immortal capital dynasty. As long as they could survive, the chance of splitting open the sky was as high as 50%. Who wouldn't want to go? At this moment, the man leading the team walked over and said, Ran, because our relationship with Primordial City has deteriorated, we have to pay a visit to Primordial City. This time, Lord Desolate Desolation has arranged for our second team to assist you. We have to have a good exchange and take care of each other." Bai Ranran looked at him coldly and said, "Yi Qingzhou, no one can help anyone in this chaotic battle. Just take care of yourself." "Ah, look at you, don't be so polite. Don't worry, if there is a chance, I will still take care of your team. After that, he passed by Ranran and the others, and when he passed by Han Fei, he still had a smile on his face. Han Fei was very familiar with the information of the internal camp. This Yi Qingzhou was a strong man in the internal camp whose strength was second only to Bai Ranran, so he was in charge of a second team. But the relationship between Yi Qingzhou and Bai Ranran was not good. Of the top 10 experts of the internal camp, 4 were in Yi Qingzhou's team. This person's fighting style was tough and murderous. Besides, he seemed to always be in the first position, so his words were not to be taken seriously. He said he would take care of Team 1, as long as he didn't secretly kill the experts of Team 1. However, Han Fei liked this kind of person. Anyway, they were all from the city of scavengers. No matter how arrogant they would all die. Han Fei even felt that if this Yi Qingzhou had the ability, he could even help him. After the mobilization meeting, under the leadership of a heaven-opening state powerhouse, a total of 201 people rushed to the so-called Land of Recovery No. 3. Han Fei also wanted to see what the so-called Land of Recovery was. Half a month later, when the kings entered the primordial mist and came to the outside of the so-called Land of Recovery No. 3, he saw that the City of Wanderers and the City of Scavengers had already arrived. When the heaven-opening state powerhouse from the City of Scavengers saw the camp of the City of Wanderers, he saw at a glance that there were at least 50 or 60 people, all of whom were members of the Heaven-Chosen team. The Emperor said in surprise, "Xing Yu, your City of Wanderers has brought all the members of the Heaven-Chosen team here. Why is there no one in the City of Wanderers?" Xing Yu sneered. "So many members of the Heaven-Chosen team have come. Shouldn't you be trembling? If the real experts of your law enforcement camp don't come, you'll lose more than half of your team." Humph. Do you really think the Heaven-Chosen team is the strongest in the chaotic wasteland? On the other side, on the side of the primordial city, someone looked at them coldly. Behind that person, Antufu and the 2 female cultivators of the Yin family also glanced coldly at the other 2 families. They hadn't even entered the battlefield yet, but it seemed that they were about to fight. Han Fei, on the other hand, established a connection with Nez's clone again. However, this time, Han Fei learned a piece of news from Nez's clone. This time, the strongest group of experts of the City of Wanderers had all come, and none of them were left behind. Gu Tingnan asked why. Because he knew that Han Fei's real body was among the members of the City of Scavengers. As early as more than 300 years ago, Han Fei could barely fight against Pan Litian, the leader of the top 10 lords. Now that he was in such a team, it would be strange if nothing happened to the City of Scavengers and the Primordial City. With Han Fei's murderous nature, it would be a light punishment if half of the kings of the City of Scavengers and the Primordial City were killed. Therefore, Gu Tingnan directly sent all the strongest people of the City of Wanderers here. This was the tacit understanding between Gu Tingnan and Han Fei. After Han Fei got the news, he was speechless. Interesting. Can I kill all these people? I'm still hoping to stand out here and enter the selection queue of the major competition of 10,000 years. However, Han Fei couldn't really let the City of Wanderers suffer losses. Therefore, he had no choice but to let the people of the Primordial City die. From the beginning, Han Fei and Nez's clone didn't even look at each other. One of the heaven-opening state experts from the City of Scavengers threw out a jade slip and said, "Everyone, listen to me. I will also enter the starting land mission this time, but I will only be at the entrance. However, I will only be at the entrance. Once you feel that you will die, you can crush the jade slip. Once the jade slip is broken, you will be automatically teleported back to the entrance. Of course, once you return to the entrance, you will also lose the qualification to explore the number 3 revival land." Huh! Han Fei couldn't help but frown. Even the Emperor will go in? On the other side, Nez's clone sent a message. Although it is an exploration, it is also a trial. Everyone doesn't want too many people on their side to die. Therefore, in addition to a compromise, the emperors can enter, but can't wander around and can only stay at the exit. Han Fei understood. That's why they said they dared to F***CKU over. In fact, the real situation was that all the heaven-opening state experts of the three forces were there to protect their people and to ensure everyone's safety. But Han Fei smiled disdainfully in his heart. If the emperors don't come, what's the use of the heaven-opening state experts? If I really want to take action, who can escape here? Chapter 2206. Han Fei temporarily belonged to the first squad, which was Bai Ranran's squad. However, when they entered the number 3 revival land, Bai Ranran said to them, "There are too many enemies on this trip. Let's split up. Remember, there are no devouring worms in the number 3 revival land, so you will encounter many native creatures of the starting ground. Moreover, these creatures are directly born by the origin of the world. They are extremely strong and can't be underestimated. As long as you can survive, it will be your chance." Bai Ranran's words made everyone confused. Without the devouring worms, who would absorb the power of the origin of the world? And where would the world origin fruit come from? Seeming to know everyone's doubts, Bai Ranran continued, "The origin of the world is hidden in these primitive creatures. Maybe there are special places for it to dissipate. You need to search for it yourself. However, any place with a large number of world origins is bound to be dangerous." Han Fei didn't care. This was a place for sea expansion stage cultivators. He was a heaven-opening stage cultivator. How could he be afraid of those dangers? After a while, the 3 heaven-opening stage cultivators all shouted, "Follow me into the channel." When Han Fei appeared in the number 3 revival land, he found that it was densely packed with creatures. As a large wave of people suddenly arrived, countless creatures fled. Among these creatures, Han Fei saw many familiar marine creatures, such as conches, crabs, jellyfish, fish, barnacles, seaweeds, starfish, squids, and so on. Anyway, there were so many kinds that many people were amazed. For most people, they hadn't really seen these unpolluted creatures. Someone sighed. "Is this the true form of the ominous creatures?" Someone was surprised. "Although they are a bit weak, there are too many kinds of creatures. I can sense as many as 10,000 kinds." Hearing these remarks, Han Fei sneered in his heart. Weak? The strongest of these creatures had already reached the venerable realm, and they were all advanced venerables. This is just the beginning. If we really explore deeper, God knows what kind of creatures we will encounter. Why do you think they are weak? Besides, Han Fei looked around and found that there were extremely abundant demon plants here. Although this place hadn't formed a seabed jungle yet, it was not far from it. This meant that this world was overflowing with vitality. If any random place had such dense vitality, it could be seen that most places were like this as well. However, Han Fei wondered what would happen to such an exuberant place if it lost the support of the origin of the world. It could be predicted that most of the living creatures would lose the opportunity to grow. In fact, the life force here might even dry up. Countless living beings would perish here. It was hard for Han Fei to imagine how many creatures had died in the countless primitive tombs in the chaotic wasteland. At this moment, the various martial emperors shouted, "Everyone, listen up. This exploration will only last for 2 years at most. Let's go." Whoosh, 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 streaks of light flew out in different directions. There were no weaklings among those who could come to Revival Land number 3 today. They were all experts who had completely opened up their origin sea. These people naturally knew that it was meaningless to engage in an endless battle right from the start. Therefore, no one would fight each other in the early stages. In terms of resources like the world origin, Han Fei was extremely scarce. If he wanted to fully tap the potential of his current origin sea, he would need at least a dozen more world origin fruit. Besides, Little Black, Little White, and the Emperor Sparrow also needed the world origin. Therefore, he wasn't in a hurry to hunt. Grabbing resources first was the right thing to do. After rushing out for hundreds of millions of kilometers, Han Fei took out his fishing rod and hooked out the nautical panorama. Originally, Han Fei wanted to find the world origin, but the nautical panorama was spinning so fast that it seemed that the world origin existed in all directions. The first time he pointed, it didn't work. Han Fei thought of something. Point to the place where the world origin converges in this land of revival. This time, the nautical panorama aimed in one direction. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled slightly, and he quickly rushed out. Since it was a land of revival that had not been explored before, the resources were naturally first come, first served. Han Fei began to rush as fast as he could. However, after less than hundreds of millions of kilometers, he encountered a primitive creature in the Pioneer Sea state. It was a strange-looking big scorpion. In Han Fei's eyes, information appeared. Name: Holy Crystal Scorpion King, primitive creature. Introduction: a primitive creature that has absorbed a large amount of the world origin and can directly use the power of the world origin. One's strength could reach the profound, the great Tao merging with the heavens, and one's battle prowess would be boosted by the great Tao here. The Holy Scorpion King has an extremely strong defense and is good at the soul hooking technique. It must be dealt with carefully. Level 95 Quality Ancient Mutant Realm Pioneer Sea contains chaotic energy greater than 9,568 wisps, battle skills, life barrier, holy crystal body, soul hooking tail collectible life origin, world origin crystal, soul hooking tail, absorbable. Remarks: the Holy Crystal Scorpion King can use the power of the world origin and is stronger than ordinary kings. When Han Fei saw the information of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. What did it mean that it could directly use the power of the world origin? It must be noted that the devouring insects also had the power to directly use the power of the world origin. Ordinary kings, if they didn't have a good way to deal with it, were no match for the devouring insects at all. Han Fei immediately stopped and attacked without the slightest hesitation. Whether he was an invader or not, even if he didn't kill the Holy Crystal Scorpion King, other people would definitely attack him. In the world of the strong preyed on the weak. If they could improve themselves with the help of others, many people wouldn't care if they killed other lives. The Holy Crystal Scorpion King naturally saw Han Fei too. Its pincers swept across the sky, and Han Fei immediately felt a mysterious power of the great Tao melted into the pincers of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King. Han Fei slapped the pincers backhanded, trying to test the power of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King. When the two forces collided, Han Fei felt a terrifying force of nearly 400,000 waves. How is it possible? Han Fei was shocked. This Holy Crystal Scorpion King was only level 95, still a long way from the peak of the Pioneer Sea realm, but it had a force as high as 400,000 waves? No. There must be some power in it that doesn't belong to it. Otherwise, it would be ridiculous. Han Fei thought to himself, I also came from the starting ground. Isn't the chaotic ocean also a starting ground? I can't borrow the power of the great Tao. But the creatures here could. What kind of reasoning was this? The Holy Crystal Scorpion King was slapped dozens of kilometers away by Han Fei, but it seemed to be fine and continued to dash at Han Fei. And this time, it was extremely fast, and the carapace on its body gradually became crystal clear, as if it was bursting out some kind of power. Bam! Han Fei continued to slap, but this time, his power was 50,000 waves higher than before, but he only managed to push the Holy Crystal Scorpion King back a kilometer. The Holy Crystal Scorpion King's body was shining with crystal luster, as if it had become a crystal body. Huh? Is this the Holy Crystal Body? Is this its innate technique? Seeing that it was no match for Han Fei, the Holy Crystal Scorpion King's stinger began to sway. This time, Han Fei clearly felt the changes in the weather here. There was some kind of power of the great Tao, which coincided with the stinger of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King. Swish, the soul hook stinger broke through the void, and Han Fei didn't fight back, letting the Holy Crystal Scorpion King try to hook his soul. Clang, blocked by an invisible soul barrier, Han Fei guessed the limit of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King's power. Under the influence of the Great Tao here, its soul power had almost reached the peak stage of the sea expansion realm. It seems that this is the power bonus I get after borrowing the origin of the world. Han Fei flipped his hand and condensed a knife on his fingertip. This knife had the power of the normal peak stage of the sea expansion realm. With a swish, a shallow mark appeared on the crystal armor of the Holy Crystal Scorpion King, but its crystal armor wasn't directly broken. Its defense is indeed strong, and there is a special power that can replenish its defense strength at any time. Can the origin of the world be used like this? Han Fei suspected that these so-called primitive creatures could use the power of the origin of the world to greatly improve their attributes in all aspects. However, outsiders like him could only fuse the origin of the world into the origin sea to tap their own potential. Was this the real use of the origin of the world? Poochie, this time, Han Fei didn't hold back anymore. He really killed the Holy Crystal Scorpion King with one slash. However, when Han Fei killed the Holy Crystal Scorpion King, there was no crack in the sky, but he could feel that part of the invisible power dissipated in an instant. The dissipated power, Han Fei sensed some complicated Taoist aura that flashed around him. After the Holy Crystal Scorpion King died, it left two things: a mass of milky white energy and an emerald green crystal. In Han Fei's eyes, information appeared again. Name, origin of life, introduction. This is the life energy that can only be nurtured by primitive creatures. Depending on the strength of the cultivator, it can increase one's lifespan by an indefinite amount after taking it. When the origin of life is taken to a certain extent, the increase in lifespan will be less and less. Level none, quality regular, contains vitality, a small amount effect after swallowing it. It can increase one's lifespan. After seeing this thing, Han Fei knew that it was another way to increase one's lifespan. Over the years, he had used a lot of apocalyptic divine techniques, and his vitality had been consumed for at least 30,000 years. If this thing could increase one's lifespan, it wouldn't be a loss for him. Chapter 2207. Han Fei reached out, grabbed the ball of life essence, and swallowed it into his body without any hesitation. Immediately, he felt a large amount of vitality being replenished. According to the consumption of the Heaven Awakening divine technique, this kind of vitality replenishment would take about 300 years. Han Fei heaved a sigh in his heart. The reason why he had made up for more than 300 years must have something to do with his true realm. If he really was at the sea expansion realm, then this life source shouldn't only be able to restore 300 years of life. One had to know that a king had a lifespan of 100,000 years. In the same realm, it would be strange if he could only replenish 300 years of his lifespan. However, Han Fei was not discouraged. After all, this was only the first pioneer sea state creature he had encountered. Furthermore, he had not only provided a portion of the origin of life, but also a portion of the origin of world. When Han Fei's eyes fell on the emerald green crystal, the information appeared again. Name, world origin crystal, introduction. A crystallization of the origin of the world that was born after the primeval creatures of the primeval world absorbed the origin of the world. With the world origin crystal, one could connect with the heavenly Tao of this world and merge it with the heavens, forming a body of unity between man and nature. Anyone who gave birth to a world origin crystal could borrow the power of the heavenly Tao to unleash a powerful force. Level C expansion equality. Average contains a small amount of world origin effect. After taking it, it can stimulate one's potential and transform one's own path into the heavenly way. Gemini Divine Arts. Han Fei didn't know if he needed to refine the world origin crystal immediately if he swallowed it now. So he used the Gemini Divine Arts to ensure his safety. After Han Fei threw the world origin crystal into the origin sea, he found that it was essentially different from the world origin fruit. This thing would not automatically fuse with the origin sea. Instead, it could be stored in the origin sea. Han Fei could not help but be surprised. If that was the case, would there be a high chance that he could obtain a large number of world origin crystals from other people in the battle in Land of Revival number 3? Han Fei felt that this was very likely. It took time to refine the world origin, and no one could guarantee that no one would discover him while he was refining the world origin crystal. If he was discovered, he would be in a very passive position. Thinking of this, Han Fei smiled. It seemed that he would have something to do in the next 2 years. However, Han Fei still chose to try refining it. Due to the acceleration of time, his origin sea's refinement speed was extremely fast. Only a few minutes had passed in the outside world, and the world origin crystal had been refined by Han Fei. However, after refining it, Han Fei couldn't help but shake his head. This level of world source was far inferior to the world origin fruit condensed by the devouring worm. Han Fei estimated that it was only 1% of a world origin fruit at most. This meant that he would have to kill at least 100 primordial beings of this level to obtain a world origin fruit. Seeing this, Han Fei's interest was greatly reduced. If it weren't for the fact that these primordial lifeforms could give him some vitality, he might not even be willing to hunt these sea expansion realm primordial lifeforms. Therefore, after refining this world origin crystal, Han Fei accelerated again. Hunting the primordial creatures of this world was not his goal. What he wanted to find was the true birthplace of this world's world origin. 1 day later, because Han Fei was too fast, he also encountered some sea expansion realm creatures on the way, but he didn't stop. The nautical panorama pointed to the place where the world origin converged. From the beginning, Han Fei's goal was very clear, which was to go for the greatest opportunity of this world. If there was no accident, Neza's clone would also go to this place. Compared with the greatest opportunity, these sea expansion realm creatures along the way were equivalent to sesame seed. There was no reason for him to pick up these sesame seeds instead of watermelons. 3 days later, although he was disturbed, it only took Han Fei 3 days to cross a distance of tens of billions of kilometers and come to a strange place where strong masters ran rampant. Han Fei had to stop because he perceived that at least 3 sea expansion realm creatures had appeared, namely a spider, a crab, and a starfish. Besides, here, the strength of the sea expansion realm creatures was not as simple as that of the Saint Crystal Scorpion King he encountered before. These 3 sea expansion realm creatures were far more threatening than the Saint Crystal Scorpion King in terms of size. Han Fei stepped out of the void but didn't stop. It stood to reason that sea expansion realm creatures would at least have some territorial awareness. It was already strange that these 3 could get along with each other in such a million-kilometer sea area. When Han Fei stepped into the perception range of these 3 creatures, he saw that they all cast hostile eyes at Han Fei. Seeing this starfish, Han Fei couldn't help but think of the hexagon starfish that refused to come out with him. Han Fei thought that it was indeed dangerous outside and everything was unknown. If he took the hexagon starfish with him, he might get himself killed, so he let it stay in the chaotic vast sea. Now there was a starfish king here, and it looked extremely strong. The moment Han Fei appeared, the 3 strong masters directly broke out and rushed at Han Fei. As the saying went, cut the Gordian knot with a knife. Han Fei didn't want to test the strength of these creatures. With just a glance, he knew that they were peak-level sea expansion realm creatures. Han Fei drew his knife from the void, swept it with the void crack, and the power of the heaven expansion realm burst out. Puchi, how could the combat power of the heaven expansion realm be easily resisted by a sea expansion realm creature? Even these creatures could borrow the power of the origin of the world of natural laws. But even so, they hadn't surpassed the threshold of the heaven expansion realm. One had to know that not everyone could surpass their cultivation level to fight. If they wanted to cross realms, the origin of the world might need to provide them with several times the power to allow these creatures to cross realms. Unfortunately, this kind of exaggerated improvement was not so easy. So Han Fei killed the spider with a single slash. When the crab and the starfish saw that Han Fei was so terrifying, they didn't want to fight anymore and immediately ran away. Unfortunately, how could their speed compare to Han Fei's? The yin-yang reincarnation knife and the heaven gate were both killed. Han Fei absorbed the life origin left by the three in succession, then threw the world origin into the sea of origin and continued to move forward. At this time, the more Han Fei moved forward, the more powerful creatures he found in front of him. At first, Han Fei killed more than a dozen peak-level sea expansion realm creatures along the way and recovered thousands of years of vitality. There were also a lot of world origin crystals. Han Fei estimated that according to these peak-level sea expansion realm creatures, these dozen or so should be almost equal to a small half of the world origin fruit. However, Han Fei found that something was wrong later. The reason being that he could sense a huge number of living beings approaching him from all directions. Furthermore, there were 4 heaven-opening stage living beings surrounding him. Han Fei took a deep breath. Was this the so-called half-starting ground? Isn't the level of this world a bit high? There were only a few heaven-opening realm powerhouses in the chaotic vast sea, but in this half-recovered place, 4 heaven-opening realm creatures came at once. If they were just ordinary heaven-opening realm creatures, Han Fei wouldn't care, but the creatures here could borrow the power of the heavenly laws. This also meant that even if these creatures had just entered the heaven-opening realm, their theoretical strength was at least 30% to 50% stronger than that of ordinary heaven-opening realm creatures. Outsider, why did you invade this place? Han Fei thought of something and immediately responded, I'm here to take the origin of this world. As far as I know, after the origin of the world is exhausted, this world will just be silent, and there will be no more vitality to breed more creatures. At least, you can still live. So, I hope you don't stop me because you can't stop me. A 3-headed giant serpent propped up its body. Outsider, you invaded our world and killed countless masters of our world, but now you are so righteous that you want to destroy the foundation of our world. What? Could it be that we have to be grateful to you? Han Fei said indifferently, Since you know that someone is coming, you should know that I am not the only outsider. The weak are prey to the strong, this is the law of survival in this world. As long as no one stops me, I can spare you. However, if I don't kill you, do you think those other people will? Don't be arrogant, my world is inviolable. A crocodile man, holding a beheading machete, slashed at Han Fei heavily. The terrifying power, with mighty power, wrapped in 9 layers of thunderclouds, seemed to be a super master who had opened the sky for a long time. However, in the eyes of the other heaven-opening realm creatures, Han Fei didn't dodge but just raised his hand. Clang waves rolled, one after another, and the aftershocks were over 100. But when the waves dissipated, Han Fei was still standing there, holding the long machete with one hand, and the skin on his hand was not even broken. The 4 heaven-opening realm powerhouses were all shocked. Is this person so strong? He can shake the sky with his bare hand. Isn't his strength much stronger than theirs? Han Fei said again, As I said, I only want to take the origin of the world and don't want to kill. At the same time, let me tell you something. Your world is not hidden from the outside world. Many people know and monitor your world. If I don't come to take it today, someone else will come to take it in the future. I can let you live and even bring you to the outside world. But other races won't reason with you. As he spoke, Han Fei stomped his feet and a 10,000 feet tall body appeared. The 10,000 feet tall body, shining with golden light, said in a deep voice, I will only reason once. If it makes sense, I can continue. If it doesn't, you can try to see who can block my blow. Chapter 2208. Speaking of which, the native creatures of Land of Revival number 3 were also confused at this time. They knew that someone was coveting this world, but judging from the comprehensive strength of those who came in before, they were generally only at the Pioneer Sea state. Most of the people who came in were killed by them. But this time, Han Fei's arrival made them fear and dread the outside world. The power Han Fei showed was too strong. The all-out attack of a Pioneer Realm cultivator was blocked by Han Fei with his bare hands, and he even threatened to take the origin of the world. At first, these strong masters certainly didn't want to. One of the big jellyfish secretly told all the Pioneer Sea State cultivators to retreat. Han Fei didn't care about this. He smiled and said, "Me. Or I can give you a chance. If you can beat me, I won't attack again." The 4 sea beasts seemed to see hope. In fact, even if Han Fei didn't say anything, some of them would also attack. Especially the jellyfish, which suddenly blocked the void of 100,000 kilometers and created a corrosive cage. Han Fei could feel that this cage seemed to have the power to corrode flesh and soul. Unfortunately, they didn't know the current strength of Han Fei's body and soul. Han Fei said, "Anything else? If this is the case, even if I don't attack, none of you will survive." As soon as he finished speaking, a giant squid turned into a spiral in the void, like a drill. Han Fei could feel the sharpness of metal, which was trying to pierce Han Fei with the power of the origin of the world and the power of the way of heaven. There was also a crab, which opened and closed its giant pincers and caught the void flaming fire. The only one who didn't attack was a clam demon. Han Fei raised his hand, and the Tao Convergence sword condensed. Now, Han Fei operated the Great Way again, and his power was so terrifying that it could easily surpass 10 million wave. The Tao Convergence sword burst out from the fusion of many Great Ways, which could almost crush a Pioneer Sea State cultivator who hadn't turned into a star. Clang, 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 crack, crack, crack. The huge octopus body, under the Tao Convergence sword, exploded inch by inch and was minced into blood foam from head to tail. If it weren't for the fact that Han Fei didn't plan to kill these people, he would have killed the squid first. The cuttlefish was pierced through. Han Feixiang grabbed the 2 giant pincers with both hands and pulled with great force. Tao runes burst forth. With a cracking sound, a rumbling sound echoed in the sky. The giant pincer was actually broken by Han Fei. It couldn't resist at all. As for the cage, Han Fei raised the knife backhandedly and slashed out with the draw technique. Hundreds of millions of knife lights swept across the sea indiscriminately. The cage was shattered like a piece of paper. Han Fei said casually, "Surrender or not?" At this moment, Han Fei actually didn't restrain himself. The monstrous blood chi seemed to be waiting for an opportunity to swallow them alive. At this moment, the muscle said in a clear voice, "All right, there is no need to fight." The big muscle transformed into a clam girl. Her posture was enchanting and otherworldly. After the clam girl spoke, the others also stopped attacking and turned back into their human forms. Obviously, they had already grasped the method of transformation. Han Fei thought it made sense. Since they could reach the heaven-opening realm, how could they not be able to do such a small thing? At this moment, the cuttlefish had just reformed its body. It looked at Han Fei in horror and looked around. The cuttlefish and the crab weren't any better than it. It couldn't help but smile bitterly. They really couldn't stop this guy. The clam girl said, "Are you going to destroy the creatures in this realm, just to obtain the origin of the world? Aren't you afraid that you will be burned by negative karma? That there is no possibility of advancement?" Han Fei sneered. "Are you kidding me? The origin of the world can indeed revitalize this world, but it won't lead to the complete destruction of this world. The power of the origin can be regenerated. At most, the ordinary creatures here will lose the space to advance for a period of time. Besides, I'm not the one who wants to destroy this world. The exit of this realm is guarded by the 3 heaven-opening realm masters. None of them is weaker than me. They regard this place as a hunting ground. If I don't take it, they won't? In the outside world, there are countless minor worlds like yours. Most of them have long since fallen silent, and there isn't a single living being inside them. Although I can absorb the essence of this world, I can also help you survive in the outside world. However, the others might not necessarily. Han Fei paused and said, "You should know that it's easy for me to kill you. There's no need to reason with you. I also know that you have a large amount of the origin of life and the origin of worlds inside of you. It's just that I don't care. But that doesn't mean I'm a merciful person." The four of them smiled bitterly in their hearts. In fact, they already somewhat believed Han Fei. Indeed, with Han Fei's strength, it was not difficult for him to kill them. Moreover, the moment this place was broken, they knew that this place had been invaded. They had already learned about the 3 sky-opening masters that Han Fei mentioned. In fact, someone had already scouted this world before. It was just that at that time they lay dormant and did not dare to show themselves. The reason why he showed himself now was because he had no other choice. After all, the other party had already fought their way in. This time, they thought that the number of heaven-opening realm cultivators on their side was no less than these invaders. However, they never expected that apart from the 3 of them, there would be a powerhouse like Han Fei. Han Fei even admitted that none of the 3 were weaker than him. Didn't this mean that any one of the 3 could easily defeat the 4 of them? If that was the case, there was no way to fight this battle. No matter how many people came, they would not be able to withstand the attacks of such a powerhouse. Alas, the clam girl sighed slightly. Actually, we also learned about the so-called origin of the world from the invaders in the past. In our world, it's not called the origin of the world. This power is called the source. And most of us were born and awakened under the nourishment of the source. However, the reason why we obtain the source is because the source itself created us. However, if we want to absorb the source, we can only cultivate and absorb it in the place where the source is dissipating. If we want to take out all the source in one go, we can't do it. If I'm not mistaken, you probably can't do it either. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. Indeed, without the devouring worm, a special creature that could gather the origin of the world, he also did not know how to harvest the origin of the world. However, a large number of powerhouses from the 3 major forces had entered this place. Therefore, there was only one way for them to obtain the origin of the world, and that was to kill. Han Fei was stunned. He did not want to destroy this sea directly. However, he knew how strong the people who came this time were. They were all equivalent to the top 200 super powerhouses in the law enforcement camp. Even though the creatures in the number 3 revival land could borrow the power of the origin of the world, their combat experience was generally lower than that of the powerhouses from the 3 major forces. Moreover, based on the previous battles, no matter how strong these local creatures were, in theory, it was not easy for them to defeat the invading sea-opening realm powerhouses in a one-on-one situation. As for the invaders who came with him, how many creatures would they have to kill to obtain enough origin of the world? Han Fei seemed to understand why the 3 major forces did this. Because the origin of a starting ground was limited. With so many people attacking together, it was impossible for each person to get one. Instead, it was calculated by the number of kills. As long as everyone killed the initial creatures here, they could obtain a small amount of the origin of the world, which could also be used for training. Why wouldn't they do it? However, the price of this was the death of a large number of initial creatures in the starting ground. But in the eyes of those powerhouses, this was nothing. The countless starting grounds had all been destroyed. Who would care about this half of the starting ground? Han Fei said, "Whether or not I can get your so-called source substance is my business. I think you don't want to see countless creatures here killed by the invaders, right? Why don't we cooperate? I can help you kill a large number of invaders, and at the same time, I guarantee that you can leave this world and find a safe place for you in the outside world. 5 days later. This was already the fastest speed of Nez's clone. He could not move at full speed like his main body. Therefore, relatively speaking, his speed was much slower than his main body. When Neza was about to come to this sea area, the information was synchronized with his main body. In an instant, his main body and clone were connected, and Neza's clone naturally knew what his main body was going to do. When Neza's clone arrived here, he saw that Han Fei was with several heaven-opening state powerhouses. Immediately, he said, the outside world doesn't know that there are heaven-opening state powerhouses here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be a large number of opening sea state powerhouses coming in this time. The clam girl and the others were puzzled. This is? Han Fei said, my clone. Currently, nearly 600 peak stage opening sea cultivators will be hunting the creatures here. These people are very strong. You should know what that means, right? The 4 emperors were shocked. They were only judging the strength of Neza's clone to measure the invaders. However, they were all heaven-opening state powerhouses and could see how strong Neza's clone was now. Naturally, they were shocked. The clam girl said, Brother Ren, you said you could find a place for us to settle down. What about the creatures here? Han Fei said, that depends on how you cooperate. Chapter 2209. 7 days later. Somewhere in the Sea of Land of Revival No. 3, there was an undersea forest that was full of life. Many initial sea expansion realm living beings were gathered in this land of demon plant. This was Land of Revival No. 3, a treasure land that was closest to the exit. Over 10 initial sea expansion realm experts from the Primordial City and the Scavenger City found this place, and a huge battle broke out. Rumble in a violent explosion, a 10,000 scaled tribe expert died. His flesh and blood were devoured by the demon plants here. The other 2 experts of the 10,000 scale tribe were running away with him. One of them shouted, something is wrong with this place. There are 6 initial sea expansion realm demon plants here. This must be a treasure land. It's a pity we don't have enough people. The other person took out a jade scroll while running and said, I will call some people over. With just the 2 of us, it will be hard for us to get the fortune here. If the people from the Primordial City and the Vagabond City come, we won't be able to get the fortune here. The person nodded, okay. However, we should retreat first. Be careful of the right side. These demon plants are not slow. We cannot let them surround us. Otherwise, it will be too late to escape. The 2 of them were like 2 rays of light that flashed in the sea. They were being chased by 3 demon plants. After 100 breaths, just as they were about to escape from the undersea forest, they sensed the people from the Primordial City. There were 4 of them. Oh no, the people from the Primordial City are here. How can they be so fast? Isn't this the direction that the Scavenger City is exploring? Why are they here? I don't know. If we rush out, we can live. Otherwise, once we are entangled by these demon plants, the people from the Primordial City will not give up this chance to reap the benefit. By then, we won't be able to run anymore. We can only back out. However, the people from the Primordial City also noticed the 2 of them. The leading lady shouted, 10,000 scaled tribe, they are being chased by the primitive natives. Stop them. Swoosh, 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 the 4 initial sea expansion realm experts flashed a triangular divine seal on their foreheads. There were only 2 of them. If they could stop them, they could easily kill the 2 of them. When the time came, the demon plants behind them would naturally be theirs. Logically speaking, they might not be able to keep the other party here with 4 against 2. However, a pair of heavenly cicada wings appeared behind the woman's back with a whoosh. The 2 kings of the 10,000 scale tribe were shocked. Oh no, it's the celestial cicada clan. Quick, let's split up and run. Every one of us who can escape count. Whoever manages to escape, go get reinforcements. If you're going to die, crush the jade slip and give up on this trial. The appearance of a disciple of the celestial cicada clan meant that one of them had died. The celestial cicada clan was simply too fast. Fortunately, there was only one disciple of the celestial cicada clan. Otherwise, neither of them would have been able to escape. Cicada, like a glazed phantom, the woman flashed across millions of miles. She stretched out her hand and grabbed a longbow. Her figure flew so fast that it almost disappeared. The 10,000 scaled tribe's expert, who was targeted by that woman, was shocked. Was his luck that bad? He knew that if he tried to break out of the encirclement now, he would undoubtedly die, so he directly turned back and charged towards the encirclement of the three great demon plants. If he turned back, he might still have a chance of survival. However, if he tried to break out of the encirclement, he would definitely die. As for giving up on this trial, he did not want to do so yet. He was still holding on to a sliver of hope. The lady from the clan was also decisive. She shouted, "Keep an eye on this one and let the other go. By the time they call for reinforcements, we'll have already cleared this area." The strong always had strong self-confidence. The four of them did not know what was in the depths of the forest at the bottom of the sea. However, they could sense the presence of the three pioneer sea realm demon plant. The expert from the 10,000 scaled tribe unleashed his burning blood burst and activated his secret skill. His strength increased tremendously. He charged towards a vortex flower. He thought that if he could break through this, he could use the power of the three great demon plants to fend off the clan. Swimming dragon soul-destroying spear. The expert from the 10,000 scaled tribe unleashed his strongest attack in his life. This attack consumed at least 5,000 years of his life force. However, he did not care. Swoosh, bang, this red flower, which had only seen the vortex, was actually stopped by this attack. The suction force stopped and the flower was pierced through. A streak of light flashed past the broken body of the red flower. Ha ha ha, so what if you're from the clan? I don't believe you can take on 5 or 6 demon plants at once. Damn it, I was so scared that I almost gave up on this trial. The lady from the clan frowned. 3 great demon plants can't even stop one person. You think you can stop me with such strength? Whoosh, the lady from the clan shot an arrow. The sharpness of the arrow turned into a spiral shadow and flew across the sky. Bang, with just one strike, half of the big red flower was blown up. The suction force of the void was destroyed in one strike. Just as the lady from the clan was about to kill the red flower, suddenly a giant vortex appeared. In the sea of vortex, a tree man shot a spear at the lady from the clan. Humph! Small tricks. Die. The triangular seal on the lady's forehead was activated and she shot another arrow. However, this time, the void was torn apart, and the void within 100,000 li was filled with irregular suction forces. The arrow was drawn in by the suction forces and was actually unable to do anything to the arrow. At the bottom of the sea, countless vines shot into the sky and sealed the area, turning it into a forbidden place. Humph! How dare you stop me with just 3 demon plants? Just as the woman was about to explode, she saw the seabed split open, and hundreds of tentacles reached out. It was a 5-colored clam that looked like an anemone. As soon as the clam opened, a sickle sliced through the air and charged toward the family. The lady from the clan took a closer look. Wasn't that Long Yu from the City of Wanderers? Oh no, we've been tricked. Retreat. However, behind them, on a tree vine, there was another person standing there at some point. The lady from the clan was startled. Li Canli? The powerful cultivator from the 10,000-mile tribe, who had just run away, knew that the celestial cicada clan had been blocked by the vortex. He grinned and said, "Heh. When you go deep into the forest, you'll know what despair is." "Who is it?" Roar, the powerful cultivator from the 10,000 scale tribe felt his divine soul tremble. When he came back to his senses, he saw the colorful corals at the bottom of the sea suddenly burst out and a bloody mouth was about to bite his head. Puff, before he could run away, he was chewed into pieces. A 5-colored snake slithered out from the mud. On the other side, the powerful cultivator from the 10,000 scale tribe, who thought he could escape, saw a sea of fire descending on him. In the next second, he was enveloped by a huge flame shield. 9 dragons' heavenly fire shield? Neza? Hey! Smart, that's your grandpa. Buzz, surrounded by the waves of fire, the heaven and earth ring rolled out and the cultivator was crushed by Neza's clone. In the blink of an eye, the 2 expansion sea realm cultivators from the 10,000 scale tribe were both dead. The remaining people from the primitive city were surrounded by Long Yu, Li Canli, and the 3 expansion sea realm demon plants. The lady from the clan yelled, "Long Yu, how dare you team up with these natives? If they find out, the city of wanderers will be punished." Long Yu waved her scythe and charged over. "Don't talk nonsense. We team up with the natives. Are you blind? We are waiting for the right time." Bang bang bang, a great battle broke out. 5 against 4, and they didn't have the upper hand at first. However, in less than 100 breaths, a snake, a lobster, and a starfish came. The lady from the clan was shocked. How could they fight? How could there be so many powerful cultivators in this forest? Could it be that there's a hidden treasure here? Or was this the place where the original source of the world dissipated? The lady had an idea. She crushed a jade scroll to summon people and turned to run. While running, she yelled, "Crush the jade scroll and give up on the trial." No matter what, she thought Long Yu and the others were working with the native. What she didn't know was that the entire city of wanderers was working with the native. Therefore, she didn't think it was an important secret. She just wanted to raise this place to the ground when more people came. However, she couldn't give up on this trial. This was the only opportunity to go to the divine capital dynasty, which only came once every 100,000 years. As for the other 3, she could only ask them to evacuate. It would be great if she could escape alone. Cicada, sword opens the heavenly gate. Puff! Just when the woman thought she would be able to escape, a pair of yin and yang sword shadows slashed twice consecutively, destroying her flesh and divine soul. The other 3 were horrified. They were about to crush the jade scroll and teleport back to the exit. However, the demonic sound shook their souls and they were lost at the same time. In the battle of the strong, life and death could be decided in an instant. The result of these 3 people was obvious. When the 3 of them died, Neza's clone appeared. Seeing this, Long Yu couldn't help waving her hand. Neza. After a while, the battle subsided. In this hunt, 7 kings were killed. After strangling these enemies, Han Fei said to the big red flower and the colorful snake, "Continue to ambush. If there are no accidents, more people will come next time. However, you should also be prepared to evacuate. If too many people die in one place, it will inevitably arouse the vigilance of the strong. When the strong come, it will be difficult to fight here." The colorful snake said, "My master said that the next ambush place is the Coral Plain. There will be 8 peak-level sea expansion realm masters ambushing in advance. After the next stop, we should evacuate there. Now, let's go back to the depths of the jungle." Neza's clone nodded. After the demonic plants and sea beasts retreated, Long Yu said in surprise, "How did you convince these primitive natives? You can even unite them. If this kind of ambush comes a few more times, the primitive city and the scavenger city will vomit blood." Neza's clone said with a smile, "Our goal is to defeat the primitive city and the scavenger city. If we don't kill hundreds of them, this trip will be in vain." Li Canli asked, "Boss Neza, is it really okay for us to cooperate with these primitive creatures?" Neza said, "Don't worry. What you need to worry about is that there should be more people in the next wave. Be careful not to let them crush the Jade Scroll and teleport back to the exit." Chapter 22:10. 3 months later. Buzz, 2 10,000 scale tribe sovereigns from the scavenger city appeared one after another. This was the 12th time someone had given up in the past 3 months. A total of 17 people from the scavenger city returned. The leader of the team this time was Chiu Shotsong, ranked second among the 10 great lords. Out of the three forces, the scavenger city had the highest number of people giving up. This made him lose face. After all, those who participated in the third revival ground were the elites of the elite. Almost none of them were weak. Why were so many people giving up while the others were fine? Only 11 people from the primordial city had given up, and only 5 from the Wanderer city had given up. How could he lose face? He could understand why the Wanderer city did not have many people giving up. After all, the people from the Wanderer city were all lunatic. They were a bunch of lunatics who did not care about anything when they fought. Who would expect them to give up? However, the number of people from the primordial city who gave up was much less than the number from the Wanderer city. This made him feel bad. Moreover, Chiu Shotsang knew that apart from those who gave up, many experts from the scavenger city had also died. Those who participated in the third revival ground had all left their life tablets with him. However, in just 3 months, 46 life tablets were broken. Chiu Shotsang knew that the third revival ground was going to be very difficult. As the three forces were going to explore together, killing each other was inevitable. Therefore, he could understand the high death rate. However, he estimated that it would be normal for about 20% of the people to die in a year. However, it had only been 3 months and more than 20% of the people had died. What would happen in a year? Chiu Shotsang looked at the 2 people who were teleported back with an ugly expression. He snorted and said, "Tell me, were you ambushed too? Or did you encounter a powerful enemy?" One of them said, "Reporting to Lord, we were indeed ambushed. The 4 of us encountered 9 sea beasts. These sea beasts are mainly demon plants. We could not defend ourselves against their stealth technique. We knew that if we forced ourselves to stay, we would definitely die. Therefore, we had to." The other person quickly said, "Lord, you might not believe it, but this is the second time we have been ambushed." Chiu Shotsang frowned. It was natural that these natives were intelligent, but the crazy ambush was infuriating. But Chiu Shotsang still said angrily, "Are you all F***king idiots? They know how to set up an ambush, but you guys don't know how to team up?" One of them said, "My lord, we've already discovered that these natives like to stick together in a dangerous place more than a month ago. Therefore, they also summoned their clansmen and moved out together. However, we are guessing that the others are thinking the same thing as us. They formed small teams one after another. Some teams had more people, and naturally, some teams had fewer people. Now, if we summon our clansmen again, we won't be able to find any stragglers." Another person added, "Moreover, Land of Revival number 3 has more treasures, and the areas that we explored are mostly different. Previously, our 2 teams had also met and explored together. However, out of the 8 of us, only the 2 of us are left. Over there." Xingyu yelled, "Chiu Shotsang, your scavenger city sure has a lot of people who are afraid of death. Now that 2 more have returned, you might as well ask them to forfeit the competition. If you can't do it, don't force yourself." Chiu Shotsang sneered, "Humph. Xingyu, I don't believe that the number of people who died in Wanderer City is small." Xingyu smiled faintly. "Which one of my Wanderer City's people hasn't wandered on the edge of death? We know how to seize opportunities. Which path of cultivation isn't littered with bones?" Humph. While Xingyu was making fun of Chiu Shotsang's side, the experts from Primordial City were also feeling resentful. 4 of the family's disciples had already died, and the number of people who had died had reached 37. This number far exceeded their expectations. They had also scanned this place before, but this world indeed only had pioneer sea realm lifeforms. It was just that these primitive natives could borrow the power of life origin. Was it really that difficult to defeat them? Xingyu didn't know what Chiu Shotsang and the family's emperor were thinking. However, he knew one thing, and that was that so far, only 5 people had died in Wanderer City. Besides, he had also asked the few people who had come back from the competition and already knew about Neza's cooperation with the primitive native. He remembered that before he came here, the Master of Silence specifically told him that no matter what happened on this trip, he should observe more and talk less, and that Neza could do whatever he wanted in the field. Originally, Xingyu thought that Neza would stir up a storm and start a few big battles, or something. But who the F***ck knew that this guy could actually cooperate with the natives? Judging from Qiu Shotsang and in Taiping's appearance and the number of people who had given up on their side, they must have lost a lot of people. At least 2 or 3 times the number of people on his side. Xingyu was very curious about how Neza would end up in the end. Now, inside the number 3 revival land, the exploration had changed from individual to team. This should be Neza's deliberate move. He wanted to force the primordial city and the scavenger city to gather their people through the native. Is this kid trying to catch all of us in one fell swoop? If that's too outrageous, things will get out of hand. Inside the No. 3 revival land, Han Fei was standing outside a dark abyss. The origin of the world was escaping from here. Judging from the extent of the origin of the world escaping, the speed was at least 10 times faster than that of a regular primitive graveyard that had just been revived. Unfortunately, it was still too little for him. He thought that he could go in and take a look, but when he calculated with the 9 Palace Destiny ruler, he found that the divination indicated that he was in a desperate situation. Han Fei didn't quite understand. After all, this was just a place of revival and had been annihilated. What kind of danger could there be here that could put him in a desperate situation? However, Han Fei also knew that desperate situations often represented great opportunities. If it weren't for the fact that the primordial city and the vagrant city were being hunted outside, he might have already gone down. At this moment, the clam girl walked over. Brother Rin, the people of the 2 forces have basically joined forces to attack. If we don't show up, I'm afraid it will be very difficult to ambush them again. Instead of answering this question, Han Fei asked, "Have any of you tried going down?" The clam girl was slightly stunned. There have been, but all those who went down had their life tablets shattered. None of them survived. Han Fei slightly curled his lips. Although he didn't dare to say how strong he was when he fully exerted himself, he was definitely at the level of the 10 lords in the scavenger city. Furthermore, the Emperor Sparrow was no longer resisting him. If they worked together, they might have a chance of survival. Han Fei raised his head. Killing the kings of these 2 forces was not the most fundamental purpose. Apart from the hunting that Neza personally led, Han Fei had asked the 4 heavenly pioneers to set up as many as a dozen traps in the number 3 land of revival. Each one of them had at least 7 sea expansion experts. Those were not ordinary sea expansion realm experts, but peak sea expansion realm experts. These were all peak sea expansion cultivators in the 3rd revival land. There are too many kings in this world. It's impossible to kill them all. Moreover, there were venerable sovereigns in the outside world, which was not something a small world could contend with. Next, sacrifice is required. Sacrifice? The clam girl frowned slightly. What do you mean? We've been ambushing for 3 months and we've killed a lot of people. However, he couldn't keep winning like this. Otherwise, the heavenly pioneers would be suspicious. Once the heavenly pioneers took action, the game would be over. Therefore, necessary sacrifices must be made. There will also be a lot of sacrifices on my side. The clam girl asked, "Fight head-on. If we can, we can. Anyway, when the number of experts on both sides is about the same, we can only fight head-on. Of course, the forces on my side will help you. You are not fighting alone." The clam girl was silent for a long time. "How do I know you are not using us to suppress your opponents?" Han Fei chuckled. "Do you think it's fun for a heavenly pioneer to sneak into a sea expansion realm expert?" While the clam girl was puzzled, Han Fei said, "If it's just these sea expansion realm experts, I can kill them all in 2 years. Why should I cooperate with you?" The clam girl asked, "Why? I once came out of a small world like yours, so I don't want to destroy you. That's why I don't have any thoughts of destroying all of you. We're all in the same boat. Once you leave this place, you'll most likely walk the path of fighting against these two great forces. It's only natural that I help you. You have no reason not to believe me, because you won't be of much help to me, and you won't be one of my helpers." The clam girl took a deep breath. "Okay, but I still hope to avoid large-scale casualties." Han Fei's lips curled. Of course. Another few months passed. Han Fei visited Neza's clone and synchronized his thoughts and information. Then, he returned to the black hole abyss. He decided to take a risk. He had been through desperate situations before. If he couldn't make it, he could rely on his senior brother. But now, he had to seize every opportunity he could. Obviously, the opportunity in front of him, though extremely dangerous, would bring him a lot of benefits. Therefore, in the eyes of the clam girl and the other emperors, Han Fei leaped into the black hole abyss. The crab remarked, "Is he crazy? Did he really jump in?" The squid asked, "If he dies, who will do what he promised me? His outer body avatar?" The clam girl said, "He said that everything has been arranged." The jellyfish asked, "Can you believe it?" The clam girl said, "A man who dares to jump into the abyss of death doesn't seem to have any reason to lie to us. There's nothing worth lying to us." Chapter 22:11. When he jumped into the dark abyss, Han Fei had already summoned the Emperor Sparrow. Han Fei said, "We're about to enter a very dangerous place. If we run into danger, I hope you can unleash your strongest power." The Emperor Sparrow was lost for words. "After all, I'm not very strong right now. In terms of combat ability, I'm only at the heaven opening stage. Why do I feel that this place has the smell of primeval times?" Han Fei thought to himself, "There's the smell of primeval times everywhere you go." Han Fei said, "This is a primitive graveyard that has been silent for a long time. It's almost half recovered. This is the only and most dangerous place in this world." As if to prove Han Fei's words, or maybe to prove the Emperor Sparrow's words, a scorching and pungent smell of sulfur rushed into Han Fei's nose. When Han Fei took a closer look, he found that it was no longer dark, but a dark red world. When Han Fei looked back, he found that he wanted to crawl into an independent small world. The Emperor Sparrow said, "This is not an independent small world but a primeval place. This place is a great tonic for me. You're really lucky." Han Fei's face slightly changed. "Don't be so lucky. There must be great danger here." The Emperor Sparrow chuckled. "Then let's see who's more dangerous, him or me." Han Fei. Han Fei released his perception. Although this so-called primeval land would not reject perception, perhaps because of the high level of power here, Han Fei's perception range was more than 10 times less than before, and his perception range could only reach 100,000 kilometers. Bam! Han Fei landed on the ground. Many places on the ground were still burning. Some of the exposed barren soil was hissing, which was caused by the bright yellow flammable gas spurting out of the ground. As far as Han Fei could see, he saw an enormous fish bone more than 200 kilometers long. Only a small part of it was left outside. The fish bone was covered by all kinds of yellow dust and dark red plants, so it wasn't easy to recognize. There were also many dead bodies of sea creatures everywhere. There were even broken clamshells and other things scattered everywhere. The Emperor Sparrow stood on Han Fei's shoulder and held his head high. He said, "I smell something bad." Han Fei's lips twitched. "There must be great danger here, but I haven't seen it yet." Han Fei thought that he had to search with the nautical panorama first. Where was the opportunity in this damn place? Hardly had he taken out the fishing rod when he sensed something and the ground began to shake. Then, sand and stones swirled in the air, and the messy skeletons began to gather. The baleful aura from all directions was also gathering in one place. Under Han Fei's eyes, at least tens of thousands of bones flew across the sky and were pieced together, finally forming a bone dragon. The bone dragon's eyes were ignited by a baleful aura, which then spread throughout its entire body, forming the feeling of being possessed by a baleful fire. It was as though its entire body was burning with raging flames. DK squinted his eyes and asked, "Tormented souls?" Han Fei was puzzled. "What tormented souls?" The Emperor Sparrow said, "In ancient times, a great number of beings died in this place, causing the living beings here to be filled with resentment and lingering for a long time. That was why the baleful aura here was so thick. Because their corpses, their skeletons, and their souls that had dissipated in the past were all filled with resentment. When this kind of baleful aura accumulates and settles over a long time, a tormented soul will be born. The tormented soul has already developed its own consciousness." Han Fei was about to approach and take a look, when the Emperor Sparrow said, "For me, this is a great tonic." Han Fei said, "Whether it's a great tonic or not, I'll cripple it first." So, Han Fei dashed to the front of the enormous bone dragon, and information popped up in his eyes. Name: Blood Dragon Tormented Spirit, mutated, Introduction: A fallen blood dragon. Because of its obsession, it absorbed the baleful aura from the battlefield and became a tormented soul. A tormented soul can drive the violent side of the blood dragon. A tormented soul has incomplete consciousness and is brutal and fond of killing. A powerful tormented soul will attract more tormented souls. Level 100 Quality: Primeval Alien Realm Sky Splitter contains baleful aura greater than 16,589 wisps. Battle Techniques: Bloodstorm, Eyes of Corrosion, Blood Breath. Collectible: Baleful Bead, absorbable. Remarks: Baleful aura can disturb one's mind. Han Fei was shocked when he saw the level of this thing. Heaven Opening State? A bunch of skeletons that can be assembled into a bone dragon can be considered to be at the heaven opening state? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Is this tormented soul going to go through the heavenly tribulation and develop the origin sea too?" The Emperor Sparrow said, "No, not all creatures in this world have to develop the origin sea. Essentially, a tormented soul is a high-intensity body, just like your soul. When the intensity of your soul reaches the level of the heaven-opening state, the tormented soul it forms will have the strength of the heaven-opening state. After all, they may have reached the heaven-opening state when they were alive." Han Fei was lost for words. "So, this thing can directly skip the heaven-opening state?" The Emperor Sparrow said, "In my inherited memories, I've seen tormented souls at the Emperor Venerable level. They're special creatures that are like the convergence of ominous aura. They grow by devouring each other." With a dragon roar, the bone dragon tormented soul soared into the sky and spat at Han Fei in midair. The raging flames with destructive power swept across the land and burned at Han Fei. How could Han Fei be repelled by a mere dragon flame? He sneered, "I'd like to see what's different about the heaven-opening state tormented souls." As Han Fei slashed out with his saber, the invincible Taoist rhyme burst out and slashed the dragon flame into pieces. The remaining force hit the head of the bone dragon tormented soul with a loud clang. The sound reverberated, but the bone dragon tormented soul took it as if nothing had happened to it. The Emperor Sparrow said, "Since you're in such a ferocious place, you won't be able to kill it with just 1 or 2 attacks unless you're extremely strong." Han Fei sneered, "Then I'll smash it into pieces." Han Fei took a step across the sky and slashed with the draw technique. Billions of sword auras surged like a tide. Clang, 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 crack, crack, crack. Countless bones of the bone dragon tormented soul were smashed into pieces in an instant. It tried to resist, and its murderous aura condensed into a storm. Its eyes even shot out 2 waves of fire. When the creepy eyes stared at Han Fei felt extremely furious. However, the anger was soon suppressed by Han Fei. He knew that the murderous aura was eroding his mind. However, he was the human sovereign realm cultivator. How could a bone dragon defeat him? When the invincible fist seal wrapped in the heavenly opening divine art landed on the bone dragon, the latter wailed and struggled. Han Fei took a step to the front of the bone dragon and grabbed the skull with his giant hand. Then, he tore the body of the bone dragon tormented soul into pieces. Its entire head exploded on the spot. The Emperor's sparrow said, "Let me." Chirp after a sharp chirp, the boundless murderous aura was swallowed by the Emperor's sparrow like a whale swallowing the sea. While the Emperor's sparrow was swallowing the murderous aura, Han Fei saw something twisting and struggling in the murderous aura. The Emperor's sparrow held a baleful bead in its mouth. It tilted its head back and swallowed it. Unfortunately, the Emperor's sparrow was a freakish creature that was born with part of the power of a venerable emperor. It was very difficult to deal with it. After dozens of seconds, the Emperor's sparrow seemed to have become more handsome after swallowing the body of the bone dragon tormented soul. However, when the Emperor's sparrow was swallowing the bone dragon tormented soul, Han Fei was speechless. Within the range of his senses, one after another, the evil spirits were reassembling. Some of them turned into a weird giant bird, some into a ferocious beast with one horn, and some into the armored insect clan. All these creatures were charging at Han Fei at this moment. It wasn't that Han Fei was afraid of these creatures. However, how come there were 5 or 6 evil spirits in a range of only 100,000 miles? When Han Fei took a closer look, he found that almost every one of them was as powerful as the bone dragon tormented soul. BM, Han Fei didn't hold back anymore. He exerted his Tao and smashed the evil spirits one after another. The Emperor's sparrow didn't need to do anything. It only needed to swallow the evil spirits and baleful beads along the way. However, Han Fei's action of killing the evil spirits seemed to have caused a disturbance in a farther area. All kinds of strange creatures, including those that flew in the sky, those that ran on the ground, and those that swam in the void, were charging at him from all directions. Their numbers kept increasing, and in the end there were hundreds of them. Shoot! So many? Han Fei didn't expect that there would be so many evil spirits in this half-recovered place. They were not as simple as the Pioneer Sea realm. They were all heaven-opening realm creatures. The Emperor's sparrow yelled, "This place has been quiet for too long. The evil spirits have grown bigger. I'm afraid there are no more evil spirits below the sky-opening realm." Han Fei said, "There are too many of them. It's okay if there are only these, but if there are more, I can't hold on." Han Fei was strong, but he didn't expect that a heaven-opening realm cultivator could easily fight 100 enemies alone. Even if he had the power of the 10 great lords after exerting his Tao, he couldn't withstand such a high-energy outburst. Han Fei simply took out his fishing rod and fished in the void while fighting. This was a small world in the land of recovery. It was too far away, so Gu Tingnan couldn't catch him. However, Xing Yu, who was closest to him, could give it a try. Far away at the exit of the land of recovery, Xing Yu's heart skipped a beat, and he looked a little dazed. "Who's looking for me?" Chapter 22:12. Xing Yu's historical body was fished over by Han Fei. However, Xing Yu was much stronger than Han Fei. Although Han Fei's strength might be comparable to the top 10 lords, he could only reach that level after he unleashed his full strength. Besides, there were only 4 generals in the Wanderer City, and each of them could fight with someone like Pan Litian. For example, Qiu Shotsang, the second lord of the Scavenger City, had come this time. If it were someone who was not strong enough, he wouldn't be able to control the situation. Xing Yu, on the other hand, had definitely turned into a star. Not only had she turned into a star, but her strength had also improved quite a bit after she turned into a star. Han Fei forcibly fished Xing Yu's historical body over. Xing Yu was only dazed for a moment before she looked confused. When Xing Yu came back to her senses, she felt that she had been dragged out of the river of time and saw a lot of tormented souls and Han Fei. She was instantly shocked. "Who are you?" Han Fei said, "I'm Neza's main body. You can only exist for a moment at most. I don't even know if you can last 100 minutes. Do your best and help me kill more tormented souls." Neza's main body? Tormented soul? Hiss! The moment she heard Han Fei's explanation, Xing Yu immediately understood a lot of things. Why did the Master of Silence value Neza so much? Why did he send the strongest kings of the Wanderer City to land of revival number 3 this time? Why did he listen to Neza's command? It turned out that Neza was just a King clone. Xing Yu was a little confused. Neza was not weak. In fact, he was very strong. Not only did he have a full set of gorgeous equipment, but his various techniques were also ridiculously powerful. In the past 300 years, he had been ranked among the top 10 experts of the Heavenly Chosen team and could almost fight against a heaven-opening state expert. This kind of character was actually a doppelganger? Xing Yu couldn't help but look at Han Fei. However, she only saw Han Fei roar, and his 10,000-meter-tall body appeared in the primeval land. Han Fei slashed out with his saber, and the terrifying power directly cut the primeval land and the endless void. He killed a heaven-opening state-tormented soul with one slash. Xing Yu could not help but be speechless. Neza's original body was at the heaven-opening realm, and his strength did not seem weak either. He estimated that he had the strength of a few of the 10 great lords. However, Xing Yu could see that Han Fei had used his Dharma body. His Taoist rhymes burst forth. At this level, he probably hadn't turned into a star yet. He hasn't even turned into a star, but he's already comparable to the 10 great lords? Xing Yu's pupils constricted. He stopped studying Han Fei and attacked directly. Ordinary people might not have heard of tormented souls, but he did. He had encountered tormented souls before. After all, there were so many primitive cemeteries. They had also entered this kind of half-revived land before. They had also entered similar places. Xing Yu didn't know how Han Fei got in, because the heaven-opening state couldn't enter the source sea of the sea expansion state at all, because the sea expansion state couldn't bear it at all. Unless they had already perished, and the origin sea had become an ownerless sea, only then would it be possible for the heaven-opening realm to enter. A thought flashed across Xing Yu's mind. Neza's real body must have an extraordinary disguise ability. If even someone at his level couldn't see through it, then not many people could. Han Fei shouted, "Hey! If you have any questions, think about them slowly after we go back. Now help me kill some enemies first." With a thought, Xing Yu activated the Great Tao, and a red war hammer appeared in his hand. As soon as Xing Yu attacked, a nebula seemed to surround the war hammer, and the violent power actually carried the effect of annihilation. With a swing of the hammer, he killed 3 heaven-opening state-tormented souls. Dong, dong, dong. While attacking, Xing Yu shouted, "You actually broke into such a dangerous place alone?" Before the primitive cemetery was destroyed, countless creatures were buried here. After countless years of devouring evil spirits, more than 1,000 tormented souls were born here. If you keep fighting like this, you will eventually lose. According to your strength, there should be at least 10 of you in this kind of place. Han Fei was speechless. How much do you look down on me? More than 10? If there were really 10 of me, this chaotic wasteland would be different. Bm. As he spoke, Han Fei slashed out with the Yin-Yang reincarnation knife. The knife appeared and disappeared, one Yin and one Yang. On average, he could kill a heaven-opening state-tormented soul in 2 rounds. With this slash, 5 tormented souls were killed. Sacrificing punch. Heaven's Gate. Draw technique. Tao Convergence Sword. Monkey King 3000 strikes. Han Fei burst out with endless combat skills. His killing speed was no slower than Xing Yu's at all. When Xing Yu saw Han Fei's moves, she knew why Neza had so many combat skills. It turned out that this guy had so many combat skills that he hadn't used the same one for nearly 100 minutes. Although Xing Yu was strong, in a situation where he maintained a high level of explosive power, he felt an invisible force trying to obliterate his body of history not long after 100 breath. At this moment, Xing Yu glanced at Han Fei. I'm about to dissipate. I'll help you with the last blow. You'd better save your strength and find a way to leave. With that, Xing Yu seemed to burst out all his strength. At that moment, Han Fei seemed to see the vast red clouds above the sky disperse, and a super warhammer spanning tens of thousands of kilometers, as if it was going to destroy this world, smashed down. Shoot! After seeing this blow, Xing Yu directly dissipated, and Han Fei couldn't help but be stunned. What a terrifying blow! This might be the ultimate killer move that Xing Yu gathered all her strength before dissipating. Rumble, the earth collapsed, and the shockwave collapsed and detonated in the void. After the terrifying impact was completely released, it rushed out of the perception range of 100,000 kilometers in the blink of an eye, and where the giant hammer fell, 13 heaven-opening realm creatures around were all annihilated. In the surroundings, as many as 20 creatures were hit and killed by the shockwave head-on. Of course, Han Fei wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He smashed out crazily, and the sky was full of broken bones. In just 100 breaths' time, these two people had killed as many as 96 Heaven Creation stage tormented spirit. At this moment, Han Fei released the King Sparrow again. Just now, because he didn't want the King Sparrow to appear in Xing Yu's memory, Han Fei let the King Sparrow return first. As soon as the King Sparrow came out, it said in surprise, "So many died?" Han Fei said, "Hurry up and swallow. Don't wait until I can't move anymore. Then you won't have a chance to swallow anymore." The King Sparrow said, "Hold on for a while." Then, the King Sparrow spread its wings, and its body expanded crazily in the air until it flew hundreds of kilometers away. While Han Fei was fighting fiercely, Xing Yu's mind was in a mess, and some memories appeared out of thin air in his memory. Tormented spirit? Neza's original body? Xing Yu's heart trembled. So this is it? However, what shocked him even more was that this person could actually pull his past self from the river of time to fight. What kind of divine technique was this? Xing Yu was even horrified. What if Han Fei pulled his past self and then killed him? Would there still be his current self? In fact, Han Fei had already studied it, and the answer was no. Because although Han Fei had caught Xing Yu in time fishing, in fact, it was just a projection of the past and a character created by the mighty power of the Great Way. After the projection disappeared, perhaps because of karma, it would leave a memory in the other party's mind. This was more like a great technique of the law of cause and effect. But in any case, the power of time fishing was undeniable. However, what puzzled Xing Yu at this moment was that this person didn't know how dangerous that place was. Was he crazy to kill his way there alone? In fact, Han Fei simply didn't know how dangerous this place was. He only thought that while it was dangerous, it was accompanied by great opportunities. In fact, so far, the one who had obtained the great opportunity was the Emperor Sparrow. At this moment, the Emperor Sparrow, who had traveled 100 miles, opened its mouth and seemed to have become a black hole, crazily absorbing the primordial evil chi here. It had already swallowed hundreds of evil beads, and its body was changing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Its wings were even more lustrous, and its temperament became incomparably handsome. This kind of ferocious power actually contained countless things. It was slowly gathered by the tormented spirits over the endless years. Now that it was absorbed by the Emperor Sparrow, the benefits were obvious. Of course, if it were someone else, even Han Fei, he wouldn't be able to devour this kind of power like the Emperor Sparrow. Bang 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 boom boom, boom. Han Fei had been fighting fiercely. Just as Xing Yu said, there were too many heaven-opening realm tormented spirits here. After Han Fei killed another 80 or so, because more and more heaven-opening realm tormented spirits gathered, he began to show signs of exhaustion. Often, because he had no time to divert his attention, he was attacked by the enemies. At first, his body was bombarded, and in the end, even his soul had to be on guard. Ownerless souls were attached to his body all the time to resist soul attack. Roar! Han Fei, who was crazily loading, showed his invincibility. His whole body was shining with golden light, and he was surrounded by layers of enemies. Just like this, under the attacks of so many heaven-opening realm powerhouses, and without Xing Yu's help, Han Fei persisted and killed more than 140 heaven-opening realm creatures. And at this moment, it had been half an hour since the Emperor's sparrow said he would wait for a while. And at this time, he had performed time reversal 14 times. Han Fei asked, "Are you full? If you are, help me first. My liver can't move anymore."